The story begins with the image of a peaceful town. It was here, upon gaining consciousness, that Derek followed an old beggar to learn a trade. Despite being nothing more than a pathetic one-star mage, the old man was such a compulsive liar that he walked around calling himself a grand mage. But needing the knowledge to survive, Derek accepted his role as a servant, regardless of the old man's difficult personality. Standing to the side, the old man was quite startled to witness the sight. Suddenly, Derek's eyes snapped open, his pupils slightly constricted. He gritted his teeth, channeling all his magic into his hand. That surge of power shot forward, forming an arrow that streaked straight ahead. The arrow pierced a tree, leaving a clean, horizontal gash in the trunk. The two of them, master and apprentice, stood in silence, staring at the arrow still embedded in the wood before them. Seeing the scene, the old man was so terrified that he broke into a cold sweat. And so, I served him in every way possible. Even though Derek was constantly drenched in sweat, his eyes burned bright, and he became a one-star mage in just 1 year. A flickering fire appeared beside a simple shack under the silent night sky. The old man, now dead drunk, held a bottle of liquor and looked up at the sky, muttering, "Those noble young masters beyond the northern walls of Ebelstein, some of them reach 3 stars before they even come of age." Derek sat beside him, intently chewing on bread while listening to him ramble. "That is a realm someone with your low-born, muddy blood could train for an entire lifetime and still never touch. So don't get cocky, your little party tricks will just collapse before the 2-star wall anyway." The old man was always going on and on about bloodlines. Derek stared blankly at the bread in his hand, accompanied by the grating voice of the old man. "Magic is a privilege of blood, no matter how you struggle, it's useless." He kept droning on to me about the insurmountable wall between the nobility and the commoners. Derek hung his head, lost in thought, letting the old man beside him drift off into a drunken slumber. Was that the craving for things he himself could never achieve? Derek turned his head slightly to glance at the old man's back. That night was long and arduous, and in the middle of it, a heavy rain suddenly began to fall. The next day, upon returning to their shelter, Derek stood silently, staring at the old man's body lying on the ground. I realized he was dead. His expression remained calm as if nothing had happened, showing not a hint of sorrow, though his body was covered in bruises, looking as if he'd just been beaten somewhere. I assumed he'd started another fight and gotten his ass kicked. That rainy night, Derek worked hard, digging the earth one shovel at a time, and it was only much later that I learned he had tried his best to drag the old man's body away. He had been beaten to death by the guards. Standing in the rain before the old man's humble grave, Derek's expression darkened slightly. Rumor had it he was caught red-handed trying to steal a 2-star magic book from the storehouse. Derek suddenly closed his eyes tight. No one understood why an old man with no ambition would do such a thing. No one knew the reason. A system notification suddenly popped up in front of Derek. That boisterous old man had always put bloodlines on a pedestal. A system notification suddenly popped up in front of Derek. That boisterous old man had always put bloodlines on a pedestal. The notification read, "Basic magic comprehension complete. Please select a primary magic element. This selection cannot be changed." Because, from the very beginning, I wasn't meant for this world anyway. And just like that, 4 years passed, and the village still held the same ancient, solemn appearance it had 4 years ago. A woman appeared with a confident posture and expression. Katia Flameheart. The red flag fluttered in the wind. She was the former mistress of the fallen Flameheart Viscount family. Of noble birth, she was a 3-star mage, and many mercenary groups wanted to recruit Katia. Derek recalled the time he first met her. She had stayed in Ebelstein, taken contracts from the Beldern mercenary group, and taught me, someone who had joined the mercenary group as a child and only knew how to use 1-star magic. She taught him many things. I had learned a great deal from a 3-star mage like Katia. The scene shifted to a tavern, the Beldern Tears. Katia sat opposite Derek, teaching him. As a mage, it is only natural to feel the desire for advancement. Besides, Derek, as you know, you have the talent to do it. She spoke to him seriously, but excessive ambition would only slow his progress. Hearing this, Derek simply nodded calmly and replied, "Yes, I will keep that in mind." Katia crossed her arms, looked straight at him, and ordered, "Now, close your eyes and feel the mana." While Derek focused on sensing his mana, Katia, sitting beside him, never stopped guiding him. Calmly sense where the mana originates, how it flows, and imagine that you are using that mana to bring your imagination to life. She crossed her arms, watching Derek across from her as he focused intently on sensing his mana. Though she showed no emotion on the surface, she was internally surprised. As expected, the amount of innate mana in that boy's body was immense. Perhaps due to his combat experience, his ability to manipulate mana was also very stable. Derek was deep in concentration, sensing his mana, when he suddenly snapped his eyes open. Katia's expression couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. A loud explosion erupted inside the tavern. The patrons, hearing the loud noise, grumbled and shouted, "What was that? What is that sound? What's going on? Are we under attack? Go outside and check." "Go on," Derek panted, staring at his palms, ignoring the noise outside. A hand suddenly grabbed his arm and pulled him away. Master Katia hurried in front of Derek, not looking back as she said, "Derek, don't say a word, just follow me." Everyone stood up, grabbing their weapons in alert, without paying attention to the two of them. What was that? There was definitely an explosion. Look carefully, it was definitely an explosion. Katia led Derek into a small, secluded corner, and looking at her tall back in front of him, he cautiously called out, "Master." Katia turned her head slightly to look at him and warned him seriously, "Derek, listen to me carefully." Derek felt a sense of anxiety in his heart. "Yes." Katia leaned in close to Derek and said sternly, "As you know, the nobility is very sensitive about their privileges, and magic is the greatest privilege of all." Her eyes locked onto his. Innate power is considered a blessing, but it is limited to the nobility. Among commoners, there are occasionally those who reach 3 stars. Looking straight at the young man, Katia said seriously, "But most of them are people who have spent their entire lives studying magic, and what you just used." Then she said something that left Derek stunned. It was a 3-star chaotic magic called Phantom Castle. And just like that, I became a 2-star mage at the age of 14. The system window appeared again. 2-star magic access unlocked, learn 2-star magic, Phantom Castle. Derek and Katia sat silently across from each other in the carriage. After that, Katia continued to guide me, teaching me all kinds of magic and sometimes telling me about the upper class she once belonged to. Katia, now dressed in fine attire, stood across from Derek. A year passed, and Katia departed. 2 mysterious figures appeared. It was said the Count Elvester family had invited her to be their private tutor. The Count Elvester family was guarded by the border Count Elvester, a power so great that even the Grand Duke in the capital didn't dare to cross them easily. He looked at her silently, head bowed in the carriage with Katia, saying it was an offer she couldn't refuse. Through the carriage window, Katia gave a sad, faint smile and waved goodbye to Derek. Becoming a magic tutor for such a prominent noble family was a great blessing for anyone. Before she left, Katia gave me a 2-star magic book as a gift. The system notification appeared again, list of learned magic, 1-star mana arrow, 1-star discharge, 2-star fireball, transformation magic, 1-star create light, chaotic magic, 1-star soundproof, 2-star phantom castle. Summoning magic, 1-star summon guiding spirit. Scouting magic, 1-star sense direction, 2-star clairvoyance. Derek sat alone in his room and slammed the book shut. Another year passed, and he left the book lying lonely on the bed before turning and leaving the room with a nonchalant air. I had taught myself 2 more 2-star spells. Derek's face was expressionless, his eyes sharp as knives. I was only 16, and I had no intention of stopping here. At the Belder and Tears Tavern, a voice echoed from within, "How about it, Derek? It's been a long time since we've had a decent commission." Derek sat alone at the bar counter, opposite Jaden, and asked, "What kind of commission?" Jaden excitedly held out his hand and replied, "It's a commission from the Grand Duke Duplain himself." "Do you understand what this means?" Still the same signature cold face. Derek glanced at him expressionlessly. "Duplain? That Duplain family? Why would a place like that come to us?" Hearing this, Jaden became suddenly excited, his eyes shining with the thought of money. "Hey kid, does that matter now? It's Duplain. Duplain, a place that spends gold like water." He excitedly grabbed Derek by the collar and pulled him closer. "Besides, kid, if we pull this off and open a line with Duplain, we'll be set for work in the future." He reached out to brush off his collar and asked, "So, what do they want us to do?" Jaden pulled out 2 gold coins and said happily, "Nothing major. They want us to exterminate some magical beasts on the outskirts of the Grand Duke's territory." Derek was suspicious. "That's it?" Jaden quickly replied, "See? Those nobles never go back on their word, do they?" Hearing this, he rubbed his chin and thought, "It smells fishy. A family of that size hiring mercenaries to kill magical beasts?" Thinking this, Derek turned to leave. "I'm not doing it, give it to someone else." Jaden was panicked to see him walk away. "Hey, wait a minute." Derek turned back and left him with a cold remark, call someone else. You know I don't take shady jobs, right? Jaden was annoyed. This brat, I'll do it. But they need a mage, they specifically need a mage. Do you know how rare mages are in the group lately? He stood with his hands on his hips and said loudly, no one can do it without you, that's why I called you. Derek continued to walk away, looking uninterested. Whatever, do they really need a mage to catch a few beasts? Either way, I don't want to get involved in trouble. Suddenly, he turned around and caught something in the air that Jaden had tossed at him. He leaned on the counter and smiled. 1 gold coin, that's just a deposit, not the full payment. Derek opened his palm, staring at the gold coin in his hand. The faces of Delon, Katarina, and Aisline suddenly appeared. Jaden hurriedly waved his hands to explain, no, not at all. My lord emissary, this kid is the real deal. He's the best mage I know. Delon didn't listen to Jaden and immediately turned to order. Let's go, this is not a task for children. Katarina suddenly whispered something to him. Both of them turned their eyes toward the mysterious young lady accompanying them. Derek's face remained emotionless when someone spoke to him. Your name is Derek, isn't it? Let's talk. In the magnificent natural landscape of the Grand Duke Duplain's territory, a monster was taken down by a single magic arrow. Derek's eyes were now like those of a cold, brutal predator. Another monster had its head cleanly sliced off by his sword. Another monster behind him raised an axe to ambush Derek. He agilely dodged, causing the creature to swing and miss. Derek coldly reached out and grabbed the monster's throat. He summoned a massive amount of magic to shock the monster to death. Casting the last monster's charred remains onto the ground, Derek turned back coldly and reported, it's all finished, my lord emissary. The three of them stood there in a daze. Delon crossed his arms and praised, not bad. The mysterious girl also gave a faint smile when Delon said, handling so many so quickly. It was dark now, and the yellow lights inside the tavern became quite prominent. The Beldurn Tears Tavern was in an uproar as Beldurn shouted angrily, you're going to be a hunting dog for the nobles? Jaden looked at him, so angry he was about to jump onto the table, and urged, sit down, we have customers, what are you doing? Beldurn was still shouting at Derek's face. Even if we are lowly commoners, don't go acting like a dog for the nobles. Jaden looked at his red-flushed face and said calmly, Derek hasn't told you how much this is worth yet? Beldurn gritted his teeth and asked, how much? How much is it worth to throw away your pride and crawl through the legs of those nobles? Jaden remained unflustered, it's not like you actually have to crawl through their legs. Then he made a sign with his hand. P-Line was even more annoyed. What? 1 gold coin? Jaden just shook his head calmly. Beldurn's eyes lit up with greed when he realized the true value of a gold coin. He bowed deeply before Jaden and shouted, please, let me crawl through their legs. Jaden was flustered, will this kid shut up? I already told you, you don't have to crawl through anyone's legs. The sky outside had gone completely dark. Beldurn had now fallen asleep on the table, drool dripping all over it. A voice suddenly rang out, so, how did the commission go? Derek calmly picked up his drink and replied, nothing special, just exterminated a few goblins and that was it. Jaden added, the first impression was a bit bad, but they sure seem to have a lot of money. Derek lowered his eyes, his face thoughtful, that's true, but all three of them were lying. Jaden turned around, searching for something as he asked, really? Derek looked down and answered, the family emissary, nobles usually embody 3 factors, youth, physical strength, and diplomacy. They look for those things, but he had none of them. The woman who claimed to be a dishwashing maid, I remember the scene where that woman handed me a towel, her hands were too clean for someone who does manual labor. A voice interrupted his sentence, Derek. Derek looked up at the person who had spoken. Jaden looked at him seriously, we are mercenaries, we don't need to dig too deep into the client, just doing the job and getting paid is enough. Derek heard this and simply replied coldly, yes. Jaden looked at the 2 kids with a gentle gaze. Uncle Jaden's words were very true, this was a wild land, and in the wilderness, food and clothes were the most important things, everything else didn't matter. The next day, a vast territory appeared. The Grand Duke Duplain's domain. Derek sheathed his sword and said calmly to everyone, it's been cleaned up. In this situation, the goblins won't dare to wander back for a long time. Delon praised, well done, thank you for your hard work. Jaden said happily, all right then, how about the remaining payment? 2 shining gold coins were held high in his hand. Jaden took the 2 gold coins and happily tossed them at Derek's head, much to his disapproval. Derek, look, 2 gold coins, 2 of them. This left Derek speechless. Put them down and let's talk. Old Dalan suddenly coughed to draw attention, and frowned. Although he didn't look happy, he still said, Derek, I hold your ability in high regard and would like to offer you an additional commission. What do you think? Both of them looked at him in surprise. Dalan continued, the Grand Duke's mansion will pay 15 gold coins for this commission. Jaden was shocked. 15 coins? Dalan looked straight at Derek and asked, will you do it? Derek answered seriously, yes. The carriage carrying everyone gradually moved away. The carriage finally arrived at its destination. A magnificent palace appeared. The Grand Duke Duplain's territory, the Duplain mansion. Jaden stepped down and looked up in admiration. Is this the Grand Duke Duplain family? It's spectacular. Dalan said to the two of them, before we go inside, I would like to reintroduce myself. Jaden replied happily, yes. Oh my, we've been together all day. Please feel free. Dalan looked at them both seriously and introduced, I am Dalan, the head butler of the Grand Duke Duplain mansion. I apologize, but due to the nature of the job, I had to hide my identity. Jaden, hearing this, couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy, yes. Oh my, this is. The woman spoke gracefully, I am Katerina, the head maid of the Grand Duke's mansion. Jaden bowed awkwardly to the two, oh my, I've been so rude to such prominent figures. I am Jaden, leader of the Beldern Mercenary group. Derek, standing to the side, said nothing but thought coldly, not an emissary but a head butler, not a maid but the head maid. I knew they weren't ordinary, but this is way higher than I thought. A pair of feet stepped down from the carriage, and both of them turned to look. Jaden asked curiously, then who is that? The mysterious girl had removed her hood, her long hair blowing in the wind. Derek felt a bit dazed. The mysterious girl smiled brightly at everyone and introduced, I am Aisline Eleanor Duplain. I would like to invite Mr. Derek here to be the magic teacher for my younger sister. Derek, the eldest daughter of the Duplain family. Aisline Eleanor Duplain. Derek looked at her with a bit of worry. A magic teacher for the young lady? A large palace with servants coming and going appeared, the Grand Duke Duplain's mansion. The room door was suddenly flung open from the outside. A figure walked in aggressively, talking as he went, Father, Brother Valerian, please look at this. Duplain was busy approving documents and looked up, unhappy, at his son. Ray, what are you doing? Please behave in a manner befitting your status. Ray stood beside a crying maid and said loudly, the one who needs to maintain their status isn't me, it's Daila. Time and time again, she lays hands on my servants. The maid's face was drenched in tears. Valerian turned to look at his younger brother, annoyed, and lowered his voice. Father and I are talking. Ray was still angry, accusing, last month, over 10 servants quit. Every few days she smashes the furniture. He stepped up to Duplain and slammed his hand on the table. When will father finally deal strictly with that unruly child? Valerian was now extremely angry at his brother's attitude and stood up, shouting, Ray. He knit his brows, his tone authoritative, enough, stop and get out. Ray said nothing but turned to look at his brother with a dark expression. The figures of two girls suddenly appeared. Father, even if Daila is unruly, we still have Aisline, don't we? Ray frowned, giving his own opinion. I think we should let Daila go. Duplain took off his glasses and said calmly, that is not your concern. Ray said angrily, I've asked the butler to look into a few convents, the facilities are good, and many nobles visit. It's better to let her serve God than live as a thorn in everyone's side, isn't it? If this continues, it will only bring disaster upon ourselves. Duplain's face darkened at this, and he grabbed his son's head and slammed it straight down onto the table. Duplain's voice was filled with indescribable rage, his eyes cold as knives as he said, I already said that is not your concern. Ray, having his head slammed down, gritted his teeth, refusing to submit. It is time for father to be decisive. Duplain looked at him with some dissatisfaction. Aisline happily led the way for Derek, and then suddenly turned to ask him, my sister, Daila, have you ever heard of her? Derek tried to search his memory and replied, little Daila? I've seen the name in the Duplain genealogy. Hearing this, she bowed her head in sadness and helplessness. Yes, that's right, perhaps few people in the world know of her. The room door opened once again. Aisline saw the two men in front of her and spoke up quickly. Valerian looked at her gently and said, it's been a long time, hasn't it? How are things in Ebelstein? She nodded lightly, yes, thanks to your care, I am living quite comfortably. Valerian tried to push the disgruntled Ray away, while awkwardly waving at the two of them. I see, well as you can see, Ray is slightly injured. Let's talk later. Aisline replied gently, yes, brother. Derek's eyes were cold and sharp as he looked at the two. The two, Ray and Valerian, walked away with a nonchalant air, and his eyes glanced in another direction. There, a maid was covering her face, sobbing bitterly. Derek watched this, silent and expressionless. She and he sat seriously in the study. Duplain spoke calmly. Good. It's good that you are living well in Ebelstein. Island turned to look directly at him and smiled brightly. Yes, thanks to your thoughtful arrangements. This is the magic teacher from Ebelstein. He has accepted the task of teaching Daila. Duplain kept his eyes glued to the documents and replied, very well. Island and Derek stood up. She smiled at Duplain and said, we will take our leave then. As they were about to turn and leave, Duplain ordered calmly, you, stay. Derek looked back at him calmly. Sunlight from outside shone into the gloomy room through the door crack. The documents were still being written on incessantly. Duplain reviewed the documents and asked Derek, you look quite young, 16? He looked at him and replied respectfully, yes. He asked again, how far along are you with your magic? Derek answered honestly, I can use a little bit of first-level magic. Duplain took off his glasses, looked straight at Derek, and said seriously, don't be overly humble, humility isn't always a good virtue. He said nothing, just looked silently at Duplain. In Derek's eyes, the entire Duke Duplain was now exuding a terrifying aura. Duke Duplain was indeed a useless display of politeness before a fifth-level mage. Derek bowed and said to him, I apologize if I was rude. Duplain said, it's fine, I understand why you have to hide your skills. Excessive talent sometimes consumes its owner. He reached out to adjust his glasses, as if assessing the age and attire. He didn't look like a magic tutor at all. Derek gave a slight, serious nod. I am a mercenary. Duplain looked at him and said, Island chose you, so I have no objections. I grant you permission to enter and leave Daila's villa. He stood up and added, the maid will show you the way. I'm leaving now. Derek hurriedly spoke up, may I ask one thing? Duplain calmly agreed, speak. Hearing his agreement, Derek said, sir, I am a mercenary. Once a job is accepted, it must be finished. Island hired me. He looked at the Duke and added, to teach Daila magic and help her integrate into noble society. Duplain frowned unhappily, why state the obvious? Derek looked straight into his eyes. Because of that, I would like to ask your permission for one thing. Duplain looked at him, full of curiosity. A plate flew through the air. It slammed against the wall and shattered, causing the maid beside it to scream in terror. She hurriedly bowed, scrambling, I'm so sorry, my lady. The person opposite her said arrogantly, sorry? Do you think an apology from someone like you has any value? Then she suddenly ordered, leaving the maid pale with fright, get out of my sight. If you dare show your face again, I'll throw this right at your pathetic face. There, a steaming hot cup of tea appeared. But why is it Derek? Jaden sat opposite Island and asked curiously, the Duplain family should have piles of magic tutors, right? Besides, it's not easy for a commoner to teach magic to a noble. She looked down and replied, almost all the famous mages on the continent have been invited. Everyone gave up. I was so desperate that I figured anyone who could use magic would do. Then Island looked up, straight at Jaden. Derek is a mercenary, but he also understands noble culture. Jaden looked back at her and replied, perhaps it's because his master used to be a noble and taught him all sorts of things. Island seemed to have a sudden realization, is that so? Compared to typical mercenaries, he does have a certain air about him. I think Derek might be able to shape Daila. Jaden suddenly remarked, my lady Island, you need to learn how to judge people better. Island was surprised. What? He looked at her seriously and said, Derek is a street mage who has been a mercenary since he was a child. Do you really think someone like that survives on charisma and kindness? Island was somewhat surprised but said nothing. Derek was led away by a maid. Standing alone before the large room door, Derek's hand suddenly raised into the air, and he tapped lightly on the door. Derek looked at the door before him and said nothing. He reached out and turned the door handle. Opening the door, Derek said calmly, hello. Looking at the lonely figure of the young lady, he said cautiously, I am Derek, excuse me. The young lady ordered in a soft voice, come here. Daila Catarine Duplain. Of the Duplain house. Derek slowly approached the young lady. Her mouth suddenly curled into a sneer, and a cup of water was splashed accurately right into his face. Derek's face was now soaked with tea. Daila stood proudly and provoked him. Oh my, what's this? I thought a sewer rat had crawled into the house. She stepped closer to him with interest, her tone mocking. Aren't you the mercenary the butler was talking about? Let me take a better look. You really are a rat. One of her hands was placed on the chair, and one leg followed suit, resting on top of it. Daila held a bucket of dirty water and stood on the chair, pouring it all over Derek's head. Does the smell of sewer water remind you of home? That outfit reeking of sewage suits you perfectly. Daila stood on the chair and said in a tone full of regret, out of water, what a pity. Derek said nothing, just looked up and gave her a cold glance. Daila frowned, annoyed, and angrily kicked him straight in the chest. How dare you look at me like that? Derek was knocked to the floor. Daila stood arrogantly with her hands on her hips, looking down at his struggle. She suddenly raised her hand, intending to take off her shoe. Damn it. Daila held the shoe high and covered her nose in disgust. That filthy, stinking smell. Then she threw the shoe hard at Derek. Daila sat down gracefully on the chair next to her. She looked down at him haughtily and said, Hey rat, know your place. You think you can teach me? Did the streets not teach you basic manners? At a desk in the study, Duplain was quietly watching the scene outside the window, his face filled with contemplation. He remembered the conversation from earlier when Derek said, I am here, which means Miss Daila's problem is not easy to solve. So I want to ask you, who is the person who loves Daila with all their heart? He gave him a cold look. What methods do you allow me to use to teach the young lady, sir? He thought about it and didn't answer. A sharp slap suddenly landed on Daila's face, turning it bright red and leaving her stunned. Derek flexed his wrist while Daila remained dazed from the slap. She looked up in fear at the demon before her. Then she was stunned, touching her slapped cheek without saying a word. Derek's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he looked at Daila. Wake up. 3 years ago, Derek and Katya were sitting comfortably in a carriage. Derek was wiping his sword and said, Master, if you have to teach a defiant and ungrateful disciple, what would you do? Derek was wiping his sword and said, Master, if you have to teach a defiant and ungrateful disciple, what would you do? He seemed unhappy. Isn't that too wishful? What if even that is impossible with that disciple? Katya explained, the essence of education is leading the disciple toward a better path. Derek, if you cannot communicate through understanding and tolerance, you must find a starting point. Derek asked curiously, what is the starting point? Katya looked at him with a dark face, imprint fear into them. Daila clutched her face, stunned after being slapped. Derek crossed his arms and said, treat others with care and respect. I won't repeat this a second time. Wake up. Daila stood up, using her hands to support herself, and slapped his face hard. Daila looked at him with a sour expression. How dare someone like you? How dare you? Another slap landed coldly on her face. Derek gave Daila a dark look. I won't repeat this a second time. When dealing with others, you must have care and respect. Daila's expression gradually became crazed. She stood up abruptly and shouted, Butler, what are you doing? This bastard just hit your Miss Daila. Hearing Daila's scream, Dalan brought the servants and ran in, panicked. Miss Daila, are you alright? He walked up to Derek and scolded loudly. What do you think you're doing? Daring to lay hands on the young lady? If the Grand Duke hears of this, he said nothing, just pulled a scroll of letters from his coat, held the letter high in his hand, and Derek said in a cold voice, Grand Duke Duplain has authorized me with full educational authority over Miss Daila. No matter what method I use, please remember that this is something he permitted. Dalan picked up the paper and took out his glasses to examine it. Daila watched him read, tense. Night completely shrouded the sky over the castle. Ray grabbed Valerian's arm and said urgently, Brother, please calm down. Valerian angrily pushed the door open and shouted, Are you that mercenary? Derek just raised his eyes, looking at him coldly. Valerian reached out angrily to grab Derek's collar, intending to fight. You dare hit Daila? Ray quickly blocked him. Brother, put that down and let's talk. Derek just looked back coldly. This is something His Excellency permitted. Ray quickly stood between the two. Brother, this is a guest invited by Island. If you do this, it will put Island in a difficult position. Father has already agreed, too. He turned around angrily to leave. Are you following me? Ray, stop getting in the way, mind your own business. Ray smiled in reconciliation and placed a hand on Derek's shoulder. I've heard the story. Daila needs a beating to wake up. Don't worry, he won't go too far. Derek turned his head to look at Ray. Watching their backs as they left the room, he lamented, why keep holding on to that useless person? The door cracked open, brightening a portion of the doll-like face. Valerian opened the door and said to him, Come in. He explained as they walked, this is the room Daila used to use when she was at the main mansion, now it's just left empty like this. Derek's eyes caught a painting in the room. Valerian's eyes also became gentle when looking at the painting. Daila loved to paint. Every time she showed her work, she would blush, looking so adorable. Looking at the painting, he added, but she rarely finished any of them. She usually just drew the part she liked and left it halfway through. Valerian suddenly spoke up. I'm sorry, I was too emotional earlier, forgive me. Derek turned to look at him and replied, It's all right, sir, don't worry about it. Seeing a room full of paintings, he asked curiously, But why did you bring me to this room? Valerian replied sadly, I wanted to show you that Daila isn't a child who deserves to be abandoned or beaten, yet from a certain day on, she became overly obsessed with noble blood. Derek listened in silence, and eventually, being kicked out of the main mansion and confined in the villa, I couldn't understand what turned her into this. He reached out to pick up a book from the shelf. I must stop Daila from entering the convent at any cost. As long as she learns even one first-level spell, I can convince my father. Valerian suddenly gripped Derek's shoulders tightly. So please, save Daila. He pushed Valerian's hand away. Wait. Derek flipped through a few pages of the book. It turned out she hadn't completely given up on magic. Looking at these dense notes in the book, he turned to ask Valerian, the other books must be full of theory and rules, right? He replied, That's right, nobles usually study rules, after all. Derek heard this and fell into deep thought. A painting of a beautiful landscape hung on the wall. Derek firmly closed the book in his hand. He gave the book to Valerian and said, I will try. The beautiful night sky appeared through the window pane. Daila was sound asleep on the soft bed. A bucket of water was suddenly poured straight down. Daila was drenched and screamed in panic. Derek looked at her coldly and said, Are you sleepy now? Daila gritted her teeth and sat up. Are you crazy? He didn't answer but dragged her away. Please follow me. There's somewhere you need to go. Daila screamed angrily, Hey, let go. Do you dare touch me? Are you really crazy? Derek dragged her down the hallway despite her frantic screaming. It hurts, let go, I'm not going anywhere. What are you all doing? Stop this bastard. The cool moonlight shone down. Derek said nothing, simply dragging Daila outside the palace. Then he coldly dumped her onto the ground. Daila gritted her teeth and cursed. What will this change? Wake up, you lowlife, how dare you teach me? Derek suddenly spoke up, leaving Daila startled, not listening. Then let me tell you an interesting story. He gave a twisted smile and said, The truth is, I have no intention of teaching Daila any magic at all. I just like beating up stuck-up nobles. Daila turned pale and stammered, What? Derek acted as if it were obvious and said, Isn't it reasonable? Why would a low-life commoner like me want to cherish a noble? The tutor thing and the talk about morals are just pretty excuses. Daila trembled. What are you talking about? So he stood face to face with her and gave a twisted laugh. I just needed an excuse to punch the arrogant faces of stuck-up nobles like you. Derek drew his sword and said, Do you know how wonderful the screams of those noble people sound? Daila trembled as she threatened, Do you think things will be fine after doing this? He raised his sword and gave a wicked laugh. Of course, since you're about to be locked away in a convent anyway, who would believe the words of someone like you? Daila's face grew increasingly pale. If something big happens, I'll just offer my life as an apology. The life of a lowlife is only worth that much, isn't it? The sword in Derek's hand reflected Daila's terrified face. Or if I run away, no one will remember me either. Consider it helping the Duplain family remove a thorn in their side. If I'm caught by that man, I'm as good as dead. He stood still, watching her shadow gradually fade away. Running through the grass toward the mansion will get me caught immediately. Daila's face was scratched, but she didn't dare to stop. I must blend into the forest. I know the forest paths well. If I escape, I can make it back to the mansion. Daila leaped over a tree root. At that moment, the one who's dead is him, not me. Daila was stunned as she glanced back behind her. A massive fireball appeared. Derek raised his hand, controlling the fireball. Daila turned back and gritted her teeth, thinking. A fireball. Seeing the massive fireball in Derek's hand, she was stunned. That's a second-level spell. How can he use second-level magic? Derek smirked slightly, and another fireball tore through the air. Daila was so scared she could only stare, frozen. She hurriedly ducked to dodge it. Where the fireball landed, a large explosion erupted. Daila was so terrified her eyes widened, and cold sweat streamed down. Derek smirked, his voice full of regret. Missed. The full moon cast a pale yellow cloak over the silent night. The sound of the woman's running tore through that quiet space. Daila ran frantically for her life, as if chased by something frightening. Because she was paying too much attention to what was behind her, she accidentally tripped over a dry branch. Daila clung to the cold ground. Luckily, her face was still fine. She suppressed the pain and braced herself to stand up. Suddenly, A series of arrows flew toward her. Daila saw those sharp arrows as soon as she glanced back. She nimbly stepped back, and the arrows landed right in the ground, fortunately missing where she was. Daila fell, hesitating, looking at everything happening before her eyes. Derek approached and praised, "You move quite well, it's truly hard to believe." For someone who is always stuck in a villa to have such ability. She gritted her teeth, her eyes filled with resentment as she looked up at him. Immediately after, without waiting for him to react, Daila scrambled forward. Derek pressed his lips together at her cold attitude. On her side, she wasn't doing much better, her strength was gradually fading, but she told herself, "How long do I have to run? Can I escape? If I keep going like this, I will definitely be caught." Not having run very far, Daila was distracted by something behind her. It was him, crouching to channel magic, and a deep pool of water appeared on the ground. Derek looked up, and everything returned to its initial state. Waves rose in his heart. That's right, this is the forest in the painting. It must be where she played since she was a child. Derek recalled the image he had once seen in a painting and surmised, in the vast embrace of nature, she had subconsciously sensed the mana and transformed it into strokes of art. While lost in thought, a sound from behind broke it. This must be. Since when did Daila return here, holding a heavy rock in her hand, aiming at his head? Derek was no pushover, he drew the sword at his waist. He agilely deflected the rock, causing her to fall. Daila gritted her teeth when her action was exposed. He looked at her coldly, red lights flashing in his eyes. "I appreciate your spirit. Knowing it wasn't easy to escape pursuit, you turned back to attack. That decision wasn't easy." Daila wanted to stand up and run, but she couldn't. It was as if something was pulling her back. Derek sneered, reminding her, "You don't have the strength to run anymore." He raised his sword and granted Daila a favor. "So, any last words?" She seemed to have accepted the truth and let out a laugh. He asked with a trace of sadness, "Why are you so obsessed with noble blood?" Hearing that question, her heart tightened. Daila's face was filled with bitterness for herself. "What else do I have besides that? Strip away this noble blood, and I am completely empty." She clenched her hands, punching the cold ground in hatred. Magic, magic, magic. When she looked up at him, Daila's eyes were filled with tears. "Do you think I haven't tried? What should I do if I've tried until I'm half dead and still failed?" Derek was momentarily silenced. She knelt down, venting her rage on the cold ground. "If magic, if painting, if everything is discarded. If I become a failure," Daila's eyes narrowed with indignation. "Then what do I have left besides this blood? If I lose this, too, I will." Her voice rang out like a challenge. "What will I become?" Derek pressed his lips together, unable to give her an answer. The sword in his hand shone once more. Daila didn't notice because her eyes were now full of tears. Amid the brilliant moonlight, Derek raised his sword and nodded. "I have heard you clearly." Under tear-filled eyes, he said his farewell, goodbye. In the blink of an eye, patches of faint light swept Derek's figure away into the distance. Daila bowed her head in fear, closing her eyes tight. She bit her lip, accepting her fate as she slowly opened her eyes to look at the world. Amid sharp ice blocks, a sword stood proudly, having pierced through them. Daila looked around, dazed, as if she couldn't process everything yet. It was him, he was still here, creating a perimeter around where she sat. Daila looked at her shimmering, faint glowing hand in confusion, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Magic." Seeing that things were settled, he neatly tucked his sword away at his side. Derek bowed deeply and earnestly, saying, "You've worked hard, my lady. Please forgive my rudeness." Daila had stopped crying, looking up at him with eyes full of hope. Seeing that expression, Derek explained, "Although this is merely a display of magic power that isn't really worth calling a spell yet, you did very well." Daila was once again driven to fury by him. As if finding an outlet for all the repression she had been holding back, she finally burst into loud, unrestrained sobs. One big, one small. The sound of that crying made the dark night feel strangely lively. The moon still hid behind the clouds, quietly witnessing everything. Derek helped her sit on a tree trunk and explained, "This is the wild school." Daila asked, puzzled, "The wild school?" While bandaging the wound on her leg, he cleared up her confusion. "Yes, most nobles follow the discipline school. All schools are essentially the same at their core, but the process of training is vastly different." She listened seriously as he explained, "Lady Daila belongs to the wild school, but because you were forced to learn the theory of the discipline school, that's why problems arose. It's not that the clothes don't fit, but that you are trying to squeeze yourself into a garment that's too tight." Hearing words that sounded very credible, Daila was skeptical. "How do you know that? How did you realize I belong to the wild school? I've seen your paintings, my lady. You sense the magic floating in nature and sketch it onto the canvas. He bowed his head, still focused on his work, not paying too much attention to her gaze. Natural mages who belong to the wild school usually feel the magic in nature from a very young age. Daila's mood had calmed down a bit. She was no longer a crybaby. After making sure, Derek dusted off her clothes so she could stand up. All right, you can walk now. Daila felt more at ease. Not bad, this is. Derek had already taken a few steps forward. Even though you've released your magic power, you still have a long way to go. Tomorrow, I'll teach you how to use it naturally. Only when he was about to leave did she dare to speak up. Because Derek was so shy, Daila decided to look away with an air of indifference. Thank you. He neither refused nor replied further. Finally, he called out to her, let's go. Daila happily approached him. Let's go. The two chatted under the moonlight, one asking and one answering in perfect harmony. By the way, did you paint that sunset picture yourself? I don't remember. It's been a long time since I picked up a brush. It's a perfect piece, that's the masterpiece of my life. You are the first person to recognize its value. The next day, the bright sunlight shone through the window frame. Daila stared blankly at the magic present on her hands. Those streams of light felt full of wonder. Her eyes were full of concentration, dedicating all her attention to it. Suddenly, what appeared were screen-like gray and murky mists, making Daila worried. This isn't good. Outside, the maids were already moving back and forth outside her room door. Suddenly, Daila threw the door open, startling the maid. The water bucket in her hand wobbled. The water splashed everywhere due to inertia, soaking the maid's dress. The maid was flustered. I'm sorry, Lady Daila, I'm sorry. Daila cast her a murderous look. She hurriedly knelt and cowed out for forgiveness. I deserve to die. Please forgive me just this once. On the contrary, she just calmly instructed, be careful. That left the maid confused. What's this? Why didn't she hit me? Did she just say that and leave? Other maids seeing this gathered around to help and gossiped. Are you okay? Did you get hit? The lady just said that. What happened when she went out last night? Over here, Derek was still fast asleep in his room. Daila hurried over and hammered on the door, calling for him to wake up. Derek! Derek! Derek rubbed his sleepy eyes and opened the door. What's wrong? The butler, who had arrived by then to reassure her, said, My lady, you should maintain proper etiquette, shouldn't you? This is not okay. Daila didn't pay attention, only saying to him, Teach me how to control the magic that just awakened. I tried it myself but couldn't. The butler, hearing this, was panicked. Has she awakened her magic power already? Seeing that Derek didn't answer, she urged, You promised to teach me today, hurry up. He suddenly slammed the door shut, leaving only one sentence, Please come back in the afternoon. Daila just gave a small smile without any anger, making the butler shed tears of joy. Finally, the lady has. Sure enough, her temperament was still something she couldn't shed. The next second, she was pounding on the door again. Hey, who do you think you are to order me around? Open the door, I told you to teach me right now. Outside, the sound of pounding continued, but he casually ignored it and laid back down to sleep. Hey, open the door. Daila angrily let out one line, You crazy fool. Scene changed to the palace early the next day. Ray walked slowly down the hallway. Two maids who were cleaning nearby looked at each other and gossiped. Have you heard the news? Lady Daila hasn't broken a single plate for several days now. The maid opposite her nodded and exclaimed, That's right, I spilled water this morning and didn't get scolded at all. The blonde maid covered her mouth and said in a low voice, It's not that, I heard Lady Daila has awakened her magic power. The other exclaimed in surprise, Oh my god, really? Right then, Ray also walked by, and he stopped in his tracks. Ray turned his head, his cold gaze flashing toward them. What did you just say? Scene change inside the study. The sound of a pen scratching was heard. Duplian hesitated before speaking. Daila awakened her magic? Valerian looked at him and replied, Yes, father, I have confirmed it with the butler and the servants many times. He didn't show much expression, just softly replying, How fortunate. Ray looked at him then, his face somewhat serious. Don't be too happy just because of this magic awakening, father. Hearing that tone, Valerian couldn't help but shout loudly, Hey, your sister has awakened magic power and you don't offer praise, and instead. Duplian frowned slightly. Ray didn't bother to pay attention to him, looking at his father and continuing, Do you remember how many mischievous tricks she caused? Are you going to ignore the matter of sending her to the monastery just because of a small achievement? He lowered his eyes, appearing thoughtful without replying. Scene change. the weather seems very beautiful today. Daila sat on the bed with puffed cheeks. Derek rested his chin on his hand, looking at her and saying, "Are you joking?" Daila turned her back to him, her tone sulky. "It's not a joke, it's anger." Derek rubbed his head in embarrassment. No matter how angry she was, it would be useless anyway. Daila immediately retorted, "It's not anger, it's irritation." He lowered his eyes to advise her, "Sulking like that won't solve anything. Everything has its own process." Finally, she couldn't help but raise her fist grumpily. "It's not sulking, it's anger." Derek paused, pursing his lips in thought. Daila was the one who couldn't hold back and turned around first. She hesitated. "Let's just consider it sulking." Derek stepped forward to pull the chair out. He sat down, his expressionless eyes glancing at Daila. "Awakening magic power doesn't mean you're allowed to be aggressive, otherwise, you'll be exhausted immediately. I'm speaking from personal experience. Studying is important, but rest is too. You've rested enough, now it's time to learn." She pouted, her tone sarcastic. Yes, whatever the teacher says is right. The magic teacher from Lushur is here." Yes. Derek's gaze suddenly became gloomy. He looked at her and said in a cold voice, "So, do you want me to teach you in a non-old-fashioned way?" Images of his not-so-good side in Daila's memory surfaced. Derek began the lesson. He looked at her hand and said, "Today we will practice controlling magic power. Once you master this ability, you can quickly become proficient in first-tier magic. The wild school is not bound by the system, very suitable for self-study. It values freedom much more than the disciplined school. Honestly, you are very well suited for the wild school." Hearing him praise her, Daila stammered, "What are you saying?" Derek looked at her, seriously saying, "Like I said, your liberal personality is very compatible with the wild school. Moreover, carrying the noble bloodline, you have abundant talent." One of her ears perked up to hear every word clearly. Daila flushed slightly and hesitated. "I have talent?" He lowered his eyes and replied, "That's right, awakening magic power has already created an ice wall. It's clearly an innate talent." She fiddled with her fingers, pretending to ask casually, "So, am I a genius?" Derek immediately retorted, "Talent and genius are two different things." Daila pouted, "They're pretty much the same thing." He said again, "No, completely different." Daila didn't bother to argue anymore and sighed, "Oh my, fine, you win." Ray, who was standing outside the room at that moment, heard the entire conversation. He gritted his teeth and let out a cold hum. Time passed slowly in the palace. Daila threw the door open, excitedly saying, "Derek, I've awakened my magic power, but I can't control it." A few days later, she ran in front of him to show off. "Derek, look at this, I can use ice, but it feels really strange." Time continued to pass. Daila chased him down the hallway shouting, "Derek, I can feel the magic, but this thing is really hard to understand." Another late afternoon under the tree. "Derek, what are you doing here?" Daila put her hands on her hips to question him. "You're supposed to be near the annex." Derek calmly replied, "Do you think I lent you the magic book so you could study it? Well, that is exactly what it's for." Daila didn't say much more, directly grabbing his wrist and pulling him along. "Hey, what's going on? Like you said last time, I've succeeded in releasing my magic power. Hurry and take a look." Inside Valerian's study, the door popped open. Derek stepped in. "Did you call for me?" Valerian nodded and signaled, "You're here? Sit down and talk." He didn't beat around the bush, directly asking, "How is Daila doing lately?" Derek lowered his eyes and calmly replied, "There's significant progress, but it will still take more time to master first-tier magic." Valerian nodded, "Understood, perhaps Mother will be back next week after the social gathering. I'll let you know in advance, she's not easygoing. Everyone in the residence is fine for now, but basically, nobles don't like it when commoners hold important positions. Do you understand?" Derek looked straight into Valerian's eyes and replied, "I will keep that in mind." "Did you call me out just to say this?" He suddenly pursed his lips in silence. Valerian stood up, walked to the window, and slowly said, "I am the heir to the Duplian family. The position of family head means having to be tolerant and protective of every member of the family. To do that, one needs to treat everyone with sincerity. But it's so difficult, the human soul is deep and complex. I wish everyone had the same thoughts and values, but in reality, that's not the case." Derek looked at his back and straightforwardly asked, "So, what do you want to say?" Valerian's hand clenched tightly. As soon as he turned his head, tears welled up. "Daila won't play with me anymore, Derek?" He heard this and darkened his face, glancing at Valerian. He began to complain, "When she was little, she always laughed and played with me. That image is still printed in my heart. Is there any other angel of a child like that in this world? So, Derek, do you have any way? How to win back Daila's affection? Derek slowly took a sip of tea and spoke. Why are you asking me about this? Without hesitation, Valerian immediately replied, Daila only hangs around you, after all. The words had just left his lips when Daila's voice rang out. Derek, where are you? Valerian suddenly took out something and brought it in front of Derek. Nothing. Look at this, I learned how to make dolls from the maids. In his hand was an absolutely ugly doll. Valerian proudly boasted, see? Isn't it just like Daila? Can you feel this brother's love? Derek darkened his face looking at him, straightforwardly saying, Are you trying to curse her? Valerian pursed his lips, tears welling up again. Derek, you really don't understand these things. Time passed again. One beautiful day at the palace, that woman arrived. She looked at Derek and spoke. I have heard a lot about you. They said they found an extremely talented magic tutor. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Mariella Devil Duplian. If you don't mind, I want to send some gifts to your territory. He didn't shy away and straightforwardly replied, I don't belong to any noble house. She was slightly stunned. He added, I am a commoner. Mariella was surprised and widened her eyes. A commoner. Time turned back to 1 week ago. Aislinn bowed her head and said to Derek, I feel truly lucky to have brought you to the residence. She smiled with squinted eyes. As your sister, I want to be by Daila's side, but because there's still a lot of work to handle in Ebelstein, I'll entrust her to you, okay? Derek didn't look up but replied, yes, I understand. Jaden patted his shoulder from behind. Derek, Our Lady trusts and entrusts you, and you respond so bluntly? The two boarded the carriage, looked toward him, and Jaden smiled and reminded him, finish up quickly and come back. Veldern will throw a fit if he finds out. Aislinn also smiled lightly. I'm counting on you, Derek. The carriage slowly rolled away. Aislinn suddenly seemed to remember something and hurriedly covered her mouth. Oh my, almost forgot. Jaden hurriedly replied, yes, what did the lady want to say? She looked back through the window glass. My mother is returning next week. I forgot to mention it to Derek. He looked at her fully puzzled. Does that need to be mentioned? Aislinn hesitated. Well. She thought to herself, my mother is a bit. Scene change in front of a room. The door was pushed wide open. A woman wearing a blue dress entered. Aislinn thought to herself, it's hard to describe, sort of like a god of destruction. Mariella angrily slammed her hand onto the desk in Duplian's office. A commoner teaching? What is this all about? Facing her anger, Duplian calmly interrupted. My ears can hear clearly, why don't you lower your voice? Mariella was endlessly angry. This is not the time to discuss that. Daila is Daila, our beloved youngest daughter. Faced with her outburst, he slowly removed his glasses. Mariella, you know it too. I don't really like hiring commoners, Duplian reluctantly explained to her, but prestigious magic teachers have all given up. Mariella placed both hands on the table, gritting her teeth in anger. Regardless, how could you bring in a mercenary like that? He added, finding a good magic teacher isn't easy. Moreover, Derek was recommended by Aislinn. Mariella used her hand to cover her forehead and turned around. No, sir, there must be at least minimum standards. She turned her head toward Duplian to suggest, that's right, we could also bring my brother Flameheart. He was busy last time, but things are different now. Daila has awakened her magic, Flameheart can teach her. On his face, there was absolutely no expression as he replied to her, bring a garrison commander back to be a tutor? Is the territory run in such a messy way? Being spoken to like that, Mariella angrily shouted, then what about the Ebelstein nobility? Are the nobles running things messily too? That's a battlefield, too. She angrily pointed, in the nobility, the teacher is the most important calling card. Yet, you hired a nameless commoner? Do you want Daila to become a laughingstock when she enters the nobility? The door was pushed open by someone. Valerian entered to stop them. Mother, calm down. You didn't come here to argue with father, did you? Mariella turned her head and said in a soft voice to him, back off, Valerian, this matter cannot be taken lightly. Someone else's voice interjected, in the end, does that commoner have enough qualifications to teach Daila or not? That is the question. Mother. Hearing the voice, both Mariella and Valerian turned their heads to look. When they saw clearly who it was, she smiled and called out, Ray. He put his hands behind his back, his whole face full of solemnity. A commoner daring to be a magic teacher for a noble isn't a normal matter, but if he really has the ability, then there's nothing to worry about. Ray suggested to Duplian, Father, why don't I test Derek? If I win against him in a magic duel, then he will have an answer. He is a real mage. He didn't say anything, just stared toward him. Then Ray asked, so what challenge then? Hearing that, Valerian looked at him full of wonder. Ray added, if Derek is a good teacher, Daila is worth it. I will test his ability. After hearing those words from his son, he just kept silent without adding anything. After Ray went out, Valerian hurriedly chased after him. Ray, Ray. When he stopped, Valerian angrily questioned, what are you thinking? A magic duel? Ray slightly reminded him, brother, do you really believe Daila has changed? Have you forgotten what she did? Valerian explained, she is our sister, after all, a piece of flesh and blood that needs to be protected. Hearing him say that, Ray gritted his teeth. Ha, flesh and blood? Suddenly, he angrily shouted, that piece of flesh and blood will drag the entire family into the abyss. Isn't what she has done still enough? If she is allowed to enter the nobility, everything will end. Valerian frowned, is that really your thought, Ray? He turned to leave. The one who crossed the line was Daila all along. Daila only deserves to be locked in the annex. He looked after Ray's back and pondered. Ray, with a determined gaze, left Valerian in helplessness. Outside, there was a bird perched on a branch chirping beside the window frame. Daila pushed the door from outside and called, Derek. At this moment, he was sitting on the bed, reading a book leisurely. Seeing her like that, he wondered, what happened so early in the morning? A scroll of some sort was thrown by Daila into the open book. Derek opened that paper scroll. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and said, if I lose this magic duel, you will be fired. His eyes looked at the paper, his mouth replied, yes, I know. Young Master Ray is already a proficient one-star mage, so it will certainly be difficult. Daila angrily shouted, is that all you have to say? You will be fired. Derek rolled the paper in his hand. I am a mercenary, so I only accept the job, complete it, and receive payment. He calmly added, I have already received that payment in full. Hearing those words, Daila could not help but be surprised. Are you really serious? 1 week later, a mixed crowd of people was entering. It was Duplian along with Miriella slowly entering the stands. Seeing them, Derek bowed to greet them. You've arrived? Then he slowly raised his head. Seeing that expression, Duplian thought to himself, he doesn't show any tension at all. He must be very confident, right? He sat in his position, thinking to himself, to be so calm in this situation, it seems I was too hasty to underestimate him. From afar, footsteps were approaching. Looking at his attire, one knew that person was Ray. He entered with a gloomy aura, his two hands clenched tight, thinking, this isn't a simple magic duel. Today I will crush Derek. Ray slowly walked up to the stands. Daila, I will make you regret this to your very bones. On this side, Daila, wearing a red dress, was also approaching the stands. She lifted her head to look forward with an emotionless gaze. Returning to the conversation between Daila and Derek, do you really want that? Is it okay regardless of other things? He spoke while moving. She had also sensed it. Her magic power had entered its orbit. Although she couldn't use a one-star spell immediately, it wouldn't be long now. Derek draped a cloak over himself. Since you carry the Duplian bloodline, why are you suddenly saying these things? He cast a glance toward Daila. I've said it before, studying in the wild school focuses on self-study rather than inheriting from others. With tears welling in her eyes, she snapped back at him. So, what? Why are you saying these things now? Seeing her like that, he could only remain silent. Daila's expression grew somber. Derek, I know I'm not a good student. She bit her lip hard to hold back her tears. But I want to keep learning magic from you. I don't want anyone else to teach me. Derek was silent for a moment. He leisurely put on his gloves. I'll say this first, I don't know the rules or the etiquette of noble magic duels, and I've never tried them before. He glanced at Daila standing behind him, but I can teach you how to win. Do you want to win? Daila was born amidst sarcasm and teasing. People always wore smiles on their faces while speaking words full of malice. Doesn't Lady Daila have any magic power? Even famous teachers have given up on her. Oh my, how could the Duplians have a child like that? The Duplian house is washed up, always causing trouble. The older siblings are so talented, why is the youngest one like that? The Grand Duke must be heartbroken. It's a good thing they have Iceland. Children are debts of karma, they really are. It would have been better not to have her at all. Remembering those words, her eyes were now full of determination. Please help me win. And in the end, Daila didn't come here as Ray's sister, nor as the youngest daughter of the Duplian house. Derek's eyes followed every step of Daila as she walked toward the stands. Now, she stood in this arena as Derek's student. At the training ground, once both had taken their positions, the chief butler cleared his throat. the high-level mage duel rules of the Ebelstein-Kelbram Hall will be applied. The side that triggers General Pelram's protective circle first will be declared the loser. Then, the match begins. Derek thought to himself, General Pelram's protective circle activates as soon as the user suffers significant damage, while simultaneously neutralizing the opponent's magic. I wondered how nobles fought, but I didn't expect them to use such expensive gear. They must be quite wealthy. The duration is 10 minutes. It seems Ray wants to end the match before time runs out. Ray decided to go big and strike Daila with a preemptive attack to finish it. He recited the incantation and began channeling magic. Daila just stood there calmly before the mana orb Ray had created. Ray thought, sorry, but you'll have to go back to the annex. Ray launched a magic wind blade toward Daila. The girl calmly waited for the attack to get close before dodging it with ease. Seeing his younger sister dodge so smoothly, Ray was frustrated. How dare she? Ray continued to hurl magic spells everywhere toward Daila. Derek sat below, observing and thinking. He is very proficient at using first-tier magic, but he seems to be a total amateur in real combat. Forcing a change in the magic's trajectory must have cost a lot of mana. Ray's wind blade attack was easily blocked by Daila's ice wall. He silently thought, that's not even high-level magic, it's just the manifestation of pure mana. Is she planning to use those petty tricks to block my magic? Ray created even more magic orbs. I just need to crush those trivial tricks. Try to block this one. Daila recalled what Derek had advised. Mercenary combat techniques aren't like those of the nobles. We don't consider fairness a virtue. We only focus on winning. It's far different from the usual etiquette rules in noble duels. So, if you win, you might have to endure a lot of gossip. However, we can create an outcome where you are the winner. Are you really okay with that? Daila, her face full of determination, said loudly, of course. Back to the battle, Daila actively dodged Ray's attacks. In the mercenary world, there are always those who win regardless of the disparity in strength. Most of them don't engage in one-on-one confrontations, but in warfare. Warfare here includes controlling the battlefield and utilizing the terrain. In other words, using every trick and method necessary to ensure victory. Even the opponent's carelessness can be exploited. Facing a direct attack, Daila gritted her teeth and erected an ice wall to defend. Ray thought to himself, it's over. Daila felt a chill down her spine, turned back, and saw Ray's attack had been redirected, heading straight for her back. With a loud crash, dust and debris flew everywhere. Derek's face remained frighteningly calm. Miriella worriedly shouted, Daila, butler, what are you doing? Hurry and stop the match, Daila will get hurt. Duke Duplian, sitting beside her, spoke up, sit down, the match isn't over yet. Miriella asked, what did you just say? Duke Duplian reassured her, she hasn't been hit. General Pelram's circle hasn't activated yet. The Duke glanced over at Derek, thinking to himself, that guy didn't even blink. Did he anticipate this? In the swirling dust, Ray thought, it's clear she was hit by the wind blade, yet the protective circle didn't activate. Where on earth did she go? Daila knew she couldn't beat her brother in a fair fight, so she played a guerrilla style, hiding under the arena floorboards to attack. From the ground, an ice pillar pierced straight up. Ray was startled but managed to dodge in time. Ray gritted his teeth, thinking, attacking from under the arena floor? According to the rules of Kelbram Hall, leaving the arena means losing. Seeing the chief butler shake his head, Ray smiled bitterly. So that means being under the floor isn't considered outside the combat zone? They must have never imagined that such a dirty tactic would be used in a magic duel between nobles. While Ray was busy thinking, Daila continued to raise ice stalagmites to attack. Ray struggled to dodge, thinking, since I can't see the target, aiming is very difficult. Is that girl just hoping to get lucky and hit me even once? There wasn't a trace of so-called noble etiquette in this match. Ray looked down at the hole in the floor, making eye contact with Daila. That gaze? That's right, I've seen those eyes before. They look unusually calm. It's exactly like when my brother grabbed Derek by the collar. Ray glanced at the stands. There's no way Daila could have come up with this by herself. This is a tactic you set up, right, Derek? Derek took off his cloak, posed coolly, his face as serious as if he had a stomach ache. Then I will play by your tactics. Standing above and observing everything, Miriella shouted, is Daila crawling under the floorboards? In that dusty place? She reminded Ray, what are you doing, my dear? Hurry and stop the match. Duplian stroked his chin and said, she isn't breaking any rules. Let's observe a little longer. He intently looked down below, having his own private thoughts. Below, Daila observed and evaluated. I can see the mana flows. Above, Ray continued chanting his spells. While he was murmuring his incantations, suddenly another ice pillar appeared from under his feet. Ray angrily cursed in his heart, "Every time I chant, she attacks from underground. I can't keep going on like this." Then he turned his eyes toward the flagpole in front of him. Below ground, Daila felt his mana flow stop. He's definitely planning something. What the hell is he doing? If he dares to chant one more time, I'll attack immediately. Standing outside and observing, Butler Delon was also surprised. "No, don't, young master." He said this because, at that moment, Ray had climbed up the flagpole. He looked down and assessed, "At this distance, she can't track my mana. But jumping down in this situation is impossible. There is only one way left." Then he reached out his arm and fired an arrow. "I will destroy that arena floor without chanting." Immediately, the arrow flew out and lodged straight into the flagpole he was standing on. This made Derek, observing from above, furrow his brows slightly. The pole broke in two. Ray used the momentum to kick the pole hard. The heavy impact caused a large hole to appear in the floor. Observing from above, Lady Miriella startled and called his name. The impact caused dust to fly everywhere. Ray tried to peer forward to gather information. At that moment, Daila's silhouette appeared vaguely in the dust. He immediately reached out and summoned another magic arrow. The arrow flew like a gale. Hit by this attack, Daila's eyes became serious. She reached out her hand, intending to summon magic to block the attack, but her mana could not be summoned at that moment. This left her feeling a bit panicked. The arrow continued to fly toward her. Now, her only choice was to sidestep to avoid the attack. After that, she kept moving to maintain distance. Ray looked at her and evaluated, "If I close the distance, I'll have the advantage. If I can fire one more magic arrow." While he was lost in thought, Daila rushed in and kicked his chest hard. Her eyes were full of determination. Taking a direct kick, Ray braced his hand on the ground, breathing heavily. Daila continued to grab a handful of dirt and threw it straight at him. Ray was extremely annoyed but couldn't do anything. Afterward, the girl climbed up onto the arena floor. On this side, Ray gritted his teeth. Damn it, kicking and throwing sand? Is she trying this hard because she's run out of mana? She's fighting with everything she has to win even though she knows it's impossible. Is that it, Daila? This match is to prove your self-respect. Then I will use all my strength to face you. As your brother. After regaining his composure, he climbed up onto the arena floor. Daila clutched her head. Drops of blood began to roll down her cheeks. Derek's words echoed in her mind. Just think of it like painting with a brush. Mana is the paint, and the incantation is the brush. Use the brush to gather the mana-laden colors and paint a picture. And that is magic. The girl's eyes were extremely surprised as she saw the magic light strips appearing before her. Returning to the present, she closed her eyes to regain her composure. Then, from her body, mana began to surge. Mana is the paint. The incantation is the brush. I can feel the mana swirling at my fingertips. I will use this paint to draw a picture. That is magic. After feeling the mana, Daila was now able to create a magic circle under her feet along with a magic spear. This made the butler gasp. That is, even Lady Miriella shed tears of joy. My dear Daila. That's first-tier magic. Don't back down, Ray thought to himself. An ice spear? You finally did it, Daila. The girl began to control the spear in her hand. On this side, Ray didn't hesitate and summoned countless magic arrows. He affirmed in his heart, even so, the result cannot be changed. Even if you use first-tier magic, I am still one step ahead of you. My attack will hit you first. Victory will be mine. Daila didn't hesitate, pointed her finger straight ahead, and controlled the spear to launch forward. On the other side, Ray also shouted loudly, firing magic arrows forward. The two attacks collided, causing a massive explosion that shook the surrounding space. Observing from the stands, Miriella anxiously called her name, Daila. Just as the dust cleared, in the center of the arena, a magic circle had been summoned. Both people inside were breathing heavily and exhaustedly, and Derek, standing above and observing, had a serious look in his eyes. Flashback to 1 year ago, at the Duke's mansion. The butler followed behind and spoke, My lord, this morning there was a letter from the Bellmeyer family. It seems related to this social gathering. How would you like me to handle it? While the two were moving, they accidentally passed by Daila's room. She was inside, sitting blankly as if thinking of something. He saw that but didn't interrupt. Back to the present. Looking at the magic barrier in front of her, she was startled. The barrier was activated? On the opposite side, Ray also realized the problem. Standing in the stands, his eyes were a bit sad. He whispered to himself, lost, ha! Unable to hold back her pent-up emotions any longer, Daila burst into tears like a child. Duplian observed everything but remained silent. Seeing that, Muriela stepped forward and shouted, "Dear! What on earth is this madness happening? Is this vulgar and miserable thing what you call a magic duel? It's crazy beyond words, that countrified commoner. How dare he teach such trash to a lady of our Duplian family?" He remembered his youth. "My lord, I am Raymond Oswald Duplian. It is an honor to accompany you to the battlefield." The Duke replied, "I have heard a lot about you from your father. Your eyes are exactly like his, no mistake, and I full of ambition." At that time, he replied, "Thank you, my lord." Back to the present, looking into his daughter's eyes, he thought, "They look much better now, Daila." A servant rushed over from behind. "Lady Daila, are you okay?" They approached to ask. "Oh dear, quick, treat her. Hurry, treat her immediately." But she immediately brushed their hands away. "No need." Afterward, she took a few steps forward. Facing his younger sister, Ray responded somewhat, You worked hard, Daila." She didn't reply, just bowed her head and then turned to leave, despite the servants trying to stop her. "My lady. Everyone, go to the inner room." She walked straight toward Derek. He still calmly looked at her. Her face looked like she was suppressing something. As soon as she couldn't hold it back anymore, she burst into tears once more. She clenched her fists, murmuring, "I lost. I'm sorry." He looked at her and then stood up, reassuring her, "It's okay. Failure isn't such a strange thing. I hope you will overcome this frustration to become stronger." This encouragement didn't make the girl calm down. Instead, it made her cry even louder, "Hoo-hoo-hoo." But a maid continued to run toward her, calling, "My lady." Muriela also anxiously approached and called her name. "Oh my God, Daila, how did you end up like this? It's been a hard time, hasn't it, my daughter?" She hugged her, encouraging, "It's okay. Everything is fine now. Let's treat your wounds first, my dear." Feeling the warmth in her words, she finally calmed down and relaxed, replying, "Yes." Afterward, she went inside with the maid. After his daughter left, she regained her emotions and walked to Derek from behind. Without hesitation, she immediately scolded, "You low-class peasant. Do you know what kind of crazy role you just played? Do you think teaching a bit of first-tier magic makes you noble?" She immediately delivered a resounding slap. She continued to curse, "You only teach dirty tricks. Don't let the pure, beautiful lily that is my daughter get tainted. How dare you let a lady of the Grand Duke's mansion learn such dirty, obscene, and vulgar tricks?" While speaking, she continued to slap him again. "There are things in this world that scum like you will never understand. That it is a value that must be preserved. A dignity that must be protected." Duplian walked over and turned back, speaking up, "Dear, you see it too, right? This is no longer a magic duel. He dares to teach this kind of trash to our Daila." Before she could even finish her sentence, a slap rang out once again. And the one on the receiving end of the slap this time was none other than Muriela. Duplian reminded her, "Don't you realize who is the one behaving crudely right now?" Finding herself slapped by him, she was a bit confused. "Why? This guy, he's just a commoner," he asserted. "That's right, even if he is just a regular commoner. But he is also our daughter's teacher. What kind of parents would treat their child's teacher like that?" Having said that, he turned toward him and spoke softly, "Please forgive her. Everyone has a different way of loving their child." He pondered for a moment and replied, "It's all right." Then he turned around, "I have something I want to discuss with you privately. Follow me to the reception room." Watching the two of them leave, Muriela was incredibly furious, gnashing her teeth. Returning to the reception room, Duplian spoke, "You truly helped Daila grow in a remarkable way. As the master of this manor, I should grant you a reward worthy of your efforts. The highest limit a commoner is allowed to reach." He offered a proposal. "Would you like 3-star magic?" He looked toward him, thinking to himself, "He sees right through my soul. He sees even the things I haven't realized myself. He understands my heart better than I do and makes this offer. Is this truly the caliber of the 5-star Archduke of the kingdom? If the opportunity has arrived, there's no choice but to grab it quickly." Immediately, he gave his answer, "Yes, I would like that." Jason continued, "You did a good job teaching Daila 1-star magic, but in the upper circles of Abelstein, such an achievement isn't enough to survive." Derek also understood what he meant. At Duplian's, there were many people who could guide Lady Daila. Now that she had grasped the basics, she would progress very quickly. Duke Duplian then said, "What my daughter needs isn't a guide. She needs a master. You are harboring an ambition, something a commoner cannot even dream of. You know clearly how those arrogant nobles would feel insulted. I overlooked that because it's you. Derek bowed his head, thinking to himself. The Archduke doesn't talk to me much, yet he knows I am aiming for more than 3 stars, looking toward 4 stars or even higher. That is what makes this man terrifying. Duke Duplian kept speaking as he wrote on paper. However, if you keep that intention, you cannot stay here for long. You are prepared to leave, right? Derek didn't need to deny it. Yes, that's right. Suddenly, he made an offer with a very good price. It's not that I don't see your ambition, but you must teach Daila for a little longer. The highest realm that a commoner is allowed to touch. You crave 3-star magic, right? He immediately admitted it. Yes, I want it. Having finished talking privately with Duke Duplian, Derek went to the library to find books. Looking at the pile of books in front of him made him feel completely overwhelmed. Many people spend their whole lives trying to get 2-star magic books, yet this place is full of 3-star books. This pile alone is reason enough for me to stay at the manor. If Palai knew, she would definitely make a scene. Today, Daila is feeling very optimistic. I'm a 1-star mage now. Derek sat there and didn't deny it. Since you have cast 1-star magic once, you can call yourself a 1-star mage. Seeing his indifferent attitude, Daila was angry. That's it? An apprentice achieves something and you're not happy? Derek replied bluntly, because it's not exactly an early achievement. Daila turned away, sighing in frustration. You're so difficult. Suddenly he remarked, it seems you've recovered a lot after 3 days. Back then, you cried a lot, didn't you? Daila sat down angrily, retorting, it was just dust in my eyes, I wasn't crying. Besides, my father should have told me sooner. I thought you were about to be kicked out. Derek immediately focused on the main point. Let's start the lesson. Since you progress quickly, you'll soon learn other 1-star spells. Hearing that made Daila brighten up. What did you just say? What's quick? Derek continued to praise her. The young lady's progress is remarkable. You've only just awakened your magic power, yet you've already cast 1-star magic. It's truly rare. Daila felt so praised she could explode with pride. I told you. I'm the type who does what I say. So what should we do first? Mana arrow? That seems convenient because there's no need to chant. Or the wind blade that Mr. Raymond uses, it looks very strong. Ice spears also feel great. If I improve a little bit, maybe I'll even hit Mr. Raymond. Derek immediately cut her off. We will practice mana manifestation. Daila was a bit discouraged. Why? Aren't we practicing 1-star magic? Derek explained, there are many reasons, but the foundation is the most important. A simple explanation of mana only left Daila feeling completely drained of energy. Fine, if I have to. Since you said so, just go ahead and do it. You got my hopes up, thinking I could learn 1-star spells. Seeing Derek staring at her, she was confused. Why are you staring at me? Is there something on my face? Derek revealed, I'm just surprised that you're obeying so well. Hearing that, Daila turned away, sulking. What kind of person do you think I am? I've respected what you said from the beginning. Derek reminded her, from the beginning? You poured dirty water on my head twice. Daila went silent, not daring to speak loudly. You still remember that? Derek replied bluntly, it's hard to forget, so she pretended to wave her hands around to distract him. The weather is lovely. Mana manifestation sounds fun. I want to do it right now. Mana manifestation, so fun. Seeing that she was still just a child made Derek smile and sigh. Soon, the night fell. Daila lay on her back on the ground, panting after a whole day of practice. Derek came over and said, it seems the young lady is about to get busy. She struggled to sit up. You heard about it too? Starting next week, I have to study etiquette too. Derek said again, isn't that a good thing? You've learned 1-star magic, now you're being educated like a true noble. But Daila felt the complete opposite. You think that's good? Noble etiquette, basics, foreign languages, geography, history, botany, piano, embroidery. I don't understand why I have to memorize all that. How can Sister Eislein endure it all? Derek explained, that's why she is called the flower of Duplian and the center of the Abelstein upper class. Daila hesitated and confessed, I just want to learn magic. he replied lightly, then just learn. Duke Duplian hired me, so there's plenty of time. She lowered her voice. I wonder if there really is plenty of time. Derek wondered, who could fire me? Daila was a bit awkward. My father recognized you, but mother won't let it be. He was puzzled. Why would the madam want to kick me out? She revealed, learning from you makes me stray from noble dignity. She fears I will become like a mercenary. Even that duel was far from the dignity that nobles pursue. Derek was very calm. Then it's simple. Making the madam keep quiet isn't hard. Strip away her excuses. The next morning, Mariella was extremely worried. I didn't expect her to encounter such a terrifying teacher. My poor child. In her imagination, Derek would tie up a guard and start the lesson. Look closely, Daila. This is the mercenary style. The second lesson was Daila carrying an entire wild boar into the manor to threaten others. So this is the famous Abelstein upper class? Making everyone scream in terror, it's Daila Catherine Duplian. Imagining that, she held her head in despair. What can that lowly person teach Daila? Even if my husband accepts it, I am the mistress of this house. I must find a way. Seeing Mariella open the door to the room, Daila spoke up, Mother. She didn't bother to look but closed her eyes to enjoy it. Oh Daila, even if people say you aren't mature, Mother still likes it when you smile in Mother's arms. But unlike every other time, this time Daila didn't run to hug her like a child. She looked completely like a young noble lady. Daila held her skirt and greeted her gently. Did you sleep well last night, Mother? Because I had to recover from my injuries, I couldn't leave the room. I am very sorry for missing the opportunity to talk to you. I have a lot of things I want to share with Mother, but unfortunately, I've had to practice piano all morning. Mariella was stunned, hurriedly stammering, I understand. Daila bowed politely and said, then I asked to leave first, because I am busy with class, Mother. Mariella was still in shock, awkwardly asking, the etiquette class hasn't started yet, right? It doesn't start until next week, right? Daila, just like Aisline, said gently, yes, Mother. Thanks to your concern, I am looking forward to them very much. Mariella had to let her leave. Go quickly, don't be late. But as Daila was leaving, a servant accidentally dropped something in front of her. Daila asked kindly, Han, are you hurt? Don't overwork yourself. The maid was just as shocked as Mariella. Yes, Lady Daila. So Daila just walked away in front of everyone's surprised eyes. Comic scene at the Abelstein Noble District. A voice rang out, lately, it feels like the Rosia salon is always filled with laughter. Lady Aisline, I was really worried at the last gathering because your husband seemed very burdened with worries. Hearing that, Aisline was startled and replied, oh, really? I didn't intend to make you worry. Most of the things I was worried about have been resolved, so I feel much better now. Opposite her, the red-haired girl is the second daughter of the Belmiard family, Elant Alphione Belmiard. Hearing these words, Elant was relieved. What a relief. When I heard the rumor that you had left the noble district to save someone, I was very worried. Aisline smiled and replied, thank you for worrying about me, Lady Elant. Actually, my sister, Daila, needed a magic tutor. I was a bit busy because I had to go find one myself. Elant thought to herself. What? Aisline went looking for one herself? What does that mean? How talented must that tutor be for the young lady of the Duplian house to go looking for him herself? Beside her, the white-haired girl continued, what did you say? Your sister? This girl is the second daughter of the Veltus family, Denise Linier Veltus. Aisline explained, yes, that's right. When I met Daila at the manor a while ago, she had become such a standard young lady that I almost couldn't recognize her. She has even awakened one-star magic, and her manners are very neat and calm. That made me feel like I need to put in more effort. Hearing that, Denise was deep in thought. That's strange. Is Aisline raising her sister? Isn't the Duplian family hiding Daila? Then she spoke up and replied, it seems you found a good magic tutor. Aisline nodded in agreement. Yes. He doesn't have status, but he is certainly a person with outstanding ability. It was truly worth it to go all the way to the Beldun mercenary corps to find him myself. This made the two noble ladies startle. A mercenary? Thinking back, Denise suddenly said, wait, isn't he the reason the manor chef ran away from the Duplian house? Remembering what the chef once said, Lady Elant is really kind. Elant was sipping her tea and continued to think. I didn't expect that tutor to not only rehabilitate that notorious thug but also turn her into a one-star mage. A smile of interest appeared on the corner of her mouth. She turned to ask Lady Eislein, "Can I ask the name of that magic tutor?" Eislein was a bit surprised by this question, replying, "What?" Iland continued, "If he is the tutor for Lady Daila, in the future he will be even more famous, won't he? At least I want to know his name in advance." Hearing that, Eislein happily introduced, "His name is Derek," returning to the Duplian manor. At this time, Daila was sitting and talking with her mother. She started retelling the process of her training over the past time. "Derek is also teaching me a bit about etiquette. Learning etiquette on your own is really difficult." Opposite her, Miriella praised, "I see. It is truly admirable that you are learning on your own." She immediately denied it. "It's not exactly that I'm learning on my own, but rather Derek taught me." Her mother immediately asked, "What is the most difficult thing when you learn by yourself?" She giggled and replied, "Almost everything is very difficult. I was able to do it to this extent thanks to Derek." But the fact that his name kept appearing in Daila's words made Miriella a bit angry inside. But on the surface, she was still welcoming. I see." After going outside, her emotions were finally released. That damn Derek. How many more times will that name appear? Honestly, I don't know what he did to her, but I won't just let it be like this. There must be a way to solve it. Outside in the garden, the servants were happily chatting with each other. Lady Daila has been very kind to the servants lately. She has become gentler. The old gardener next to her replied, "Lately, Lady Daila seems very happy. She has changed a lot in just a few weeks." The butler also had similar observations. "It's really surprising. Because that's the demeanor I only ever saw in Lady Eislein. Perhaps she is finally trying to become a true lady. Now we can feel the noble air from Lady Daila." Hearing the name Derek everywhere made Miriella extremely angry. She could only gnash her teeth. The scene shifts to the evening. Outside the manor, Derek was sitting and practicing with the new magic book he had received. After feeling a slight change in his body, he stretched his hand forward and began to cast a technique. Feeling a massive source of power surging in his body, Derek gritted his teeth against the intense pain. After that, the energy source on his arm gradually dissipated into the air. He was breathing heavily and collapsed onto the ground. Then someone approached from behind, attracting his attention. It was Ray. He wore a friendly expression. "Oh, sorry. Am I interrupting your training?" Although he was very tired, he still replied politely, "Not at all. What brings you all the way here?" The two of them started to confide in each other. Ray turned and asked, "I want to talk a little bit about Daila." He nodded and continued, "Sure." Then he looked down at the book in his hand. "But before that, isn't that a 3-star magic book?" He nodded in confirmation, "That's right. Duke Duplian lent it to me." Hearing this made Ray a bit startled. "My father lent you that?" He replied, "Yes. It's a difficult level for me right now, but there's no harm in learning it in advance." Remembering what Duke Duplian once said, enough. He is a real magician. Hearing this, Ray also understood the issue. "I see, that is truly impressive." Then he returned to the main topic. "So what is it about Lady Daila that you want to come to me for?" Ray was a bit shy and started to explain, "Oh right, that matter. It's actually a bit complicated. But what do young girls like these days?" Faced with this strange question, he looked at him but didn't answer right away. Ray continued to talk to himself. "If I sew a doll that looks like her, would she like it?" Thinking of the doll in Daila's room earlier, he replied firmly, "Definitely not." Sweat poured down Ray's face in confusion. Is that so? Yeah, I guessed it would be like that. I didn't say I would make it or anything. Derek replied, "Yes. I don't think it's very promising. Should we go inside soon?" "If you have finished training." Then he followed Ray into the manor. While the two were moving, Ray spoke up, "Anyway, I am very grateful to you. The atmosphere in the family has been very good lately. Even Valerian has focused on managing the territory. And father, even though he doesn't show it, he seems very satisfied." He asked curiously, "Really?" It's hard to guess his feelings. Ray laughed and replied, "Everyone in this manor would agree with that. I think I should accept what I need to accept now. People will eventually have to change, especially children at that age." I don't know if it's because I didn't realize it sooner or because I intentionally avoided it. But because Daila has changed, I think I should change too. This is thanks to you, Derek. Thank you. Facing this gratitude, he was a bit confused. Up ahead, Ray returned to the topic of Daila. By the way, Daila's magic feels like a different type of magic. He asked from behind, do you notice the difference? Ray replied, yes. It's like painting a picture. He thought to himself, a genius is still a genius. As expected of the Duplian household. Realizing this, he nodded in confirmation, yes. Lady Daila uses the mana manipulation method of the natural school. Ray then turned and replied, the natural school? I've heard of it. He continued, the way each person uses mana is very different. Once she reaches a certain trajectory, she will figure it out herself without me having to explain anything, and at that level, a tutor's interference can even become an obstacle. Understanding what he meant, Ray replied, I understand. At that level, her moment to shine will also come. The scene shifts 2 months later. At this time, a small flower appears on the desk in Daila's room. She wondered, what's this? Why are there flowers? The servant behind her replied, they bloomed so beautifully that I brought them here to pin on the young lady's hair. Picking up the flower and starting to feel its scent, Daila was extremely satisfied. They smell very fragrant. It feels like spring has been here for several months. I've been able to use one-star magic comfortably, and I've become closer to the servants. Perhaps I have missed out on a lot of things until now. I think all of that is thanks to Mr. Derek. The servant behind her replied, I was just wondering why the young lady looked so happy today. Is today a magic lesson day? Daila replied, yes. Do I look that happy? The servant took the flower and replied, then I have to pin the flower beautifully. From outside, a mocking voice rang out, oh my, get me an extra flower so I can give it to Mr. Derek. The flower branch in her hand suddenly fell to the ground. The corners of her eyes were teary. What does that mean, Derek? He and Valerian were standing in front of her door. He explained, just like you heard, I have nothing left to teach Lady Daila. The laws of the seasons are always like that. There is no winter that lasts forever, and there will be no spring that is eternal. Returning to the Duke's office, he stated, perhaps you have realized it too, but Lady Daila belongs to the natural school. And among them, the young lady's characteristics are especially strong. If I continue to interfere in her business, I will only break her wings. As a magician, he also understood what he meant. I understand. So you have no reason to continue staying in this manner anymore. He nodded in confirmation, yes, that is correct. He pondered for a few seconds. Then he stood up from his chair, went to the window, and began to open up. Thanks to you, many things have changed. My granddaughter also matured thanks to you. I have been too busy managing the territory to be a good father. But now I feel somewhat relieved. So when will you leave? He replied, I heard that Lady Eislein will soon visit the manor and then return to Abelstein. I plan to go with her carriage at that time. The Duke replied, I understand. Will you return the library key? He replied, yes. I will return the magic books I am studying, and I will hand over the key to the head butler. The Duke interrupted, there's no need to do that. Return the key right now. Having said that, he glanced thoughtfully at the magic book beside him. The Duke continued, if there's nothing else, you can leave right now. He seemed to have something else to say but couldn't say it. He immediately bowed and then turned to leave. As soon as he left the Duke's office, he met Daila. She had been waiting for him for a long time. You came here suddenly, and now you are leaving just as abruptly. He intended to interrupt Lady Daila, but it was inevitable. She continued, I know you won't listen, but I will still say it. Her voice became smaller, can you not stay? He pondered for a few seconds, then approached her, beginning to explain as usual. I will return to my life as a mercenary. I will also study a lot more magic, and once Lady Daila is equipped with more skills, she will go to Abelstein to make her debut in high society. By then, we can meet again. If my level increases a bit by then, I will be able to teach the young lady a few new things. Are you trying to console yourself? Daila chided, how annoying. You always speak the truth, so I have no words to refute you. Scene shift to night. Daila was fast asleep. In her dream, countless eyes appeared, all turned toward her. They mocked, Daila, you're a useless child. A completely incompetent kid. What do you have to be proud of besides your bloodline? You don't even have a shred of talent. You are the shame of the Duplian house. You should never have been born. Hearing this, her eyes suddenly flew open. Then, in fear, she jolted upright and screamed, "No way!" She took heavy, ragged breaths to calm herself down. She rubbed her head, reassuring herself, "It's just a nightmare." Hearing a commotion inside, a servant pushed the door open and entered. "Lady Daila, are you okay?" I heard a scream. What happened? She looked at the servant before her, thinking to herself, what if I make up an excuse? Perhaps I'll slap her face like before, throw a tantrum, and cause trouble. Then Mr. Derek would stay here for my sake, wouldn't he? Seeing her not answer, the servant asked anxiously, "Lady Daila, are you all right? Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Deep down, she was going through an intense internal struggle. After a moment, she replied, "No." She thought to herself, "I won't do those things anymore." She smiled brightly. "I'm fine, so don't worry." She continued to think, that wouldn't make me more valuable. Scene shift to the next day. A new day had begun at the manor. From early morning, a carriage carrying Aisline was waiting outside. Seeing him, she spoke up, "Would it be alright if I dropped you off at the commercial district?" He didn't refuse. "Yes. If that's possible, I'd be very grateful." She smiled, "Say your goodbyes. We will be departing soon." Hearing this, he turned his head back to look at the people he had been attached to all this time. Only Daila kept avoiding his gaze. Valerian looked at him, wondering, "So you're really leaving?" He replied, "I have to return to the place where I belong." Ray, standing nearby, added, "Life at the manor must not have been easy for you. You worked very hard during your time here. If anything happens, remember to contact me. I will help within my abilities." Hearing this kindness from the two of them, he bowed his head and replied, "Thank you, sir." Then he turned his gaze toward Daila. At this moment, she was also staring straight at him. The two said nothing for a long time. Then Daila shouted, "Why are you looking at me like that? Do you think I'm going to beg you not to leave, right? Don't you dare misunderstand. I'm not a child anymore." This made him very pleased. He stood straight and said, "Teaching you has been an honor. I cannot proudly claim to be your tutor, but I hope you will remember the magic you learned with me." Daila pouted in response, "Sorry. But I will proudly declare that you are my tutor. You won't be able to live in peace anymore. Either way, you will be the tutor of the great Daila Catherine Duplian." After those words, there was another silence. Seeing him staring at her, she shyly looked away, her voice sounding a bit reproachful. "Take care, don't do uselessly dangerous things and get hurt." He also reminded her, "I'll be fine. You shouldn't overwork yourself either." Daila said confidently, "I am an adult now. Now I can take care of myself." These words made him feel extremely familiar, because those were the very words he had once said to his own master. "I am an adult now. I can take care of myself." His master at that time had gently approached and hugged him. "Derek, remember these words of mine." Returning to the present, he called out, "Lady Daila." He leaned in close, placed his hand on her head, and reminded her, "You don't need to grow up so quickly." That sentence touched her heart so deeply that she couldn't hold back her tears. But then she tried to regain her confidence, waving her hand happily, "See you again, Derek." He also politely bowed in response, "See you in Abelstein, Lady Daila." Scene shift to the afternoon. He was now at the Abelstein commercial district. He opened the door and walked into his familiar tavern. Inside, Feline was beating a fat man to a pulp. The crowd behind cheered excitedly, "That's it. Kill him. Beat him to a pulp." Noticing someone enter, she threw a final, decisive punch. Then she turned around, smiling and calling his name, "Derek." He took off his hat and smiled, "I'm back home." Scene shift to the next day at the Beldun Tavern. Inside, Beldun began to speak, "Even though it can't compare to the tea of the nobility, this is the honeymead you like best. Consider it a farewell party, it's on me." He replied happily, "Thank you." Seeing this attitude of his, Feline turned away, feeling annoyed. "Pfft, how come you look so house-trained? Did working at the noble manor make you all fair and soft? I thought those nobles were drugged to hire you as a magic tutor. What exactly happened? Tell me about it." He was too lazy to explain. "It was just work, there's nothing special to tell." Feline continued to provoke him, "Geez, why talk like a noble? Would it kill you to tell me a little? Beldun immediately spoke up to smooth things over. Feline, cut it out and drink this. Being interrupted made her a bit irritated. Ugh, how annoying. While you were gone, I had to take on the work by myself until I was exhausted. He looked at him and continued, but didn't Derek bring back a ton of money in return? Did they pay as agreed? He replied, even more than money. I got something far more important than that. Saying that, he took out a magic book and placed it on the table. Observing the book, Beldun assessed, what is this? A second-star magic book? Feline was also a bit surprised. Hey, something this precious. While they were still surprised, he continued, it's not. This is a third-star magic book. This left the two of them stunned. Did you steal it? If you get caught, your head will be off your shoulders. Feline added, oh, steal it, so what? This is third-star level. I want to steal it too. Where is it? He replied indifferently, the Duke granted it to me. These incredibly absurd words made Feline dissatisfied. You guy, stop bluffing. Do they really need tutors there? Answer me, you guy. The rapid-fire questions made him a bit tired. He looked out the window. The sky had turned to the middle of the night. Beldun was busy cleaning up the tavern. Then he asked, any new jobs lately? He replied, huh? You just got back a day ago and you want to take a job already? He said confidently, yes. If it's a light job. I feel like my instincts are getting a bit dull. This intrigued Beldun. Seriously, a guy like you knows when your instincts are dull? People who use magic are always in need. If you want, there's more work than you can handle. He immediately offered, then starting tomorrow would be fine. Please find me the earliest job possible. Scene shift to the next day. He and Feline were sitting in a carriage leaving town. Their job today was monster hunting. After a struggle, they eliminated a goblin. Afterward, they continued to face a swarm of giant spiders, so a long day passed. The two of them returned to the carriage to prepare for camping there for the night. While Feline was in a deep sleep, he left his bed. He went to a nearby clearing and began practicing magic. Gradually, he felt the power spreading through his body. He stretched out his hand, creating a tiny crystal block containing immensely powerful force. Its power was so great that it knocked him backward. Then a massive explosion occurred, shaking the entire forest. He slowly sat up, looked at his arm, and breathed heavily. Although I've grasped most of the key points of second-star magic, this third-star wall is truly too high. In a flash, summer had passed, autumn had arrived, and then it was winter. The tavern door opened. At this moment, he and Feline walked inside. Feline was trembling from the cold. So cold. How cold does the weather intend to get? Seeing the two return, Beldun praised, back late, aren't you? Crossing this weather to go up to the Kent mountain range? Feline scolded, really? I told you to wait for the weather to get warmer before going. Receiving the bag of items, Beldun praised, only crazy people like you would go chop off harpy heads in this weather. Derek nodded in response, thank you. Feline, on the other side, was enjoying the warmth of a hot towel. So good. He turned back to say to the two, since you're this tired, I assume you're resting tomorrow? There's a job that fits you very well, Derek. He wondered, what job is it? He smiled. It's a light job with high pay, although it's a little bit annoying. Scene shift to the next day. He was walking on the road and thought to himself, this is a request from the Rohel Mercenary Corps in the West. You've probably heard of it. The Count Belmiard family seems to be looking for commoners to be practice opponents for magic. In other words, they need a punching bag to vent their anger. Just need to go there and stand to be hit a few times and it's done. After a long period of travel, he was present at the magic arena of the Noble District. Inside, Ilant was walking with a bald old man. She turned and wondered, who am I fighting today anyway? He replied, today we have prepared a commoner for you to practice offensive magic. This left her a bit dissatisfied. What? You told me to go fight a commoner? He asserted, this is also part of the training. Lady, we promised to pay him a worthy reward. So you can just practice your hardest. She replied lethargically, I see. The so-called training is essentially using noble status to bully commoners. He explained, but at least he is a first-star mage. She continued, even the professor is about to reach the second-star threshold. Isn't the difference between first and second star a sky and earth gap? Elsewhere, Derek was changing his outfit to prepare for work. A shadow approached him, making him look up. Elant approached and asked, "Is it you, my opponent today?" He bowed and replied, "My name is Derek." She also introduced Elant. Then she thought to herself, Derek? This name sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard it somewhere before. The bald man pointed to the training ground, ordering, "All right, please step onto the arena." While she kept observing him closely. Is this guy really a mage? He looks so childish. The two then stepped onto the training ground together. She said, "All right, then, do you know the basic rules in magic duels?" He replied, "Yes, I know a little." This made her a bit satisfied. That's good. Fight back with all your might. I will try to finish this very quickly. She calculated to herself, even though I'm forced to do this, if I use a shockwave to knock him off the floor, it should be over quickly. Suddenly he asked, "Fight back with all my might, how much does that mean?" This unexpected question made her a bit confused. Huh? What are you saying? He explained, "I need to know how much I should resist so I can be of help to Lady Elant." Hearing these words from him made the bald man helplessly shake his head, but that made Elant become excited. "You talk quite ridiculously. I already said it, fight back with all your ability." Derek on this side pondered for a few seconds, then began to channel mana into his arm. "If that's the case, I will comply with your wishes, my lady." She on the other side also began to channel mana around her body. She brought her arm forward, her mouth muttering ancient incantations. She thought to herself, that commoner brat is also worth praising for reaching the first star realm at this age. But he is too arrogant. I will make him understand the wall separating nobles and commoners. She continued chanting one more time. As soon as she finished, she immediately fired a mana bullet straight at him. This surprise attack didn't make him lose his composure. As soon as the bullet was close, he just slightly shifted his body to the side, dodging it very simply. The bullet then slammed straight into a distant tree, shattering the trunk in two. The scene unfolding in an instant made Elant a bit surprised. He on the opposite side calmly said, "What's the next attack?" She was a bit angry, cursing internally, "This little brat seems to have reasons to be this confident, but that doesn't mean the gap between us will disappear." Saying that, she muttered other incantations. Countless magic arrows from the ground began to shoot into the air. They moved as if they had a mind of their own, under her control. She pointed her finger straight at him and ordered, "Finish it with this blow." On this side, he didn't rush to dodge but immediately fired a ray of magic. His mana bullet easily shattered her magic arrows very cleanly. After that, it flew straight to her side, signaling a response without restraint. She began to calculate, it's just a simple magic, but he can control it to this extent? The bald man standing outside observing was also silently excited. For a commoner, his level is truly excellent. It seems the rumors about him aren't just empty talk. The anger inside Elant rose to its peak. She continued to cast another incantation. "I admit that I underestimated you. So this time, I will attack seriously." Looking at the source of magic power radiating from the arrows this time, Derek was a bit wary. She changed tactics. She doesn't intend to hit me, but is she intending to blow away this entire arena? For a noble, this level of adaptability is also quite impressive. Her arm was raised high. Tens of thousands of arrows now shot straight up into the sky, creating a giant rain of arrows aimed straight at him. Looking at that, he immediately assessed that he couldn't dodge this blow. Immediately, he knelt on one knee, beginning to summon a layer of protective magic. Countless arrows arrived and collided with the barrier, creating piercing whistling sounds. Successive collisions filled the surrounding space with smoke and dust. After the dust cleared, he appeared from behind the smoke without suffering any injuries, but his eyes suddenly froze at the scene in front of him. Because Elant had taken advantage of the opening to rush forward, preparing to launch the next attack, he quickly assessed the situation. An arrow at a distance this close, impossible to dodge, nor time to set up a barrier. Her talent is truly insane. At that moment, he immediately snapped his fingers. The surrounding space suddenly flashed with blinding light. Unable to open her eyes, Elant was angry. "Damn it! My eyes." She still tried to move forward, slowly opening her eyes. Observing around, she didn't see him anymore. She cursed internally, "Where did that bastard disappear to? I can't see anything." She told herself, "Focus, Elant. Just listen carefully, I can react in time. Just need to find his position." Right at that moment, she felt something brush past her face. What just brushed past? I didn't hear any sound, don't tell me. Right at that moment, the image of Derek appeared before her eyes. Surrounding him were countless mana bullets. He didn't hesitate to fire a series of mana bullets at her at extreme speed, making her struggle to dodge. She immediately realized illusion magic, making sound disappear? He even anticipated that I would rely on my hearing. Then that first missed attack, did he dare to go easy on me? While defending, she cursed, no way. Suddenly he rushed straight at her, surprising her. Is he closing the distance? What a fool. High-speed magic deployment is my forte. Focus, Elant. The moment magic appears from his hand, I will strike first and end the match. But right at that moment, he suddenly changed his action. He stomped hard on the ground, pushing her back. From the tips of his feet, countless lightning bolts began to appear. She immediately realized, his toes are deploying magic? The surprise attack made her struggle to defend. The bald man observing from outside thought, impressive. That brat seems to belong to the natural school, but I can't read his mana flow. From the perspective of the regular school, it's really hard to keep up. Sitting on the ground, gasping for breath, Elant spoke up, indeed an interesting brat. She stood up and walked toward him. I'll be honest about this. At first, I looked down on you and thought you were just a braggart. She approached and leaned down to say, but you taught me something interesting, so, thank you. Saying that, she channeled magic into her feet and began to deploy magic. Facing this surprise attack, he immediately brought his hands forward to block the pressure. Then he skillfully manipulated the flow of the attack. The blow was deflected, turning back to attack toward Elant. Taking the full brunt of this blow pushed her backward. Immediately, he rushed forward with another attack appearing on his hand. His eyes filled with determination, rushing straight toward his opponent, while Elant looked at him with eyes full of astonishment, mixed with fear. Derek landed from the air, his right hand wrapped in sharp purple energy crackling like small thunder under the ground. Elant looked up, eyes wide with astonishment mixed with disbelief. Beads of sweat rolled down her cheeks, her body momentarily stiffened under the terrible pressure from his movement. Suddenly, a handbell rang sharply, cutting through the tense atmosphere of the battlefield. The bald teacher standing on the sidelines, with a stern expression behind his glasses, continuously rang the bell signaling the end of the match. That sound forced both of them to stop. Derek's feet landed heavily on the stone floor as the purple energy dissipated from his hands. He immediately regained his composure, placed his hand on his chest, and bowed politely. You've worked hard, Lady Elant. Elant stood in silence for a moment, her breath still ragged, her mind reeling as she tried to process what had just happened. The scene shifted a while later to a resting area bathed in gentle sunlight. Elant sat by an exquisitely carved table with a maid standing solemnly behind her. She looked toward Derek, her voice soft but sincere, you really are an excellent mage. Derek stood opposite her, shaking his head slightly, declining the compliment. Not at all, Lady Elant. It is you who is truly exceptional. This is the first time I have ever met someone with such a sharp mind as yours. Elant caught his gaze and offered a knowing smile. A tongue that smooth meant he was already well versed in the ways of high society. She continued, her voice tinged with playfulness, I've heard rumors that you come from humble beginnings, but looking at this level of skill, you must have pushed yourself to the point of breaking to achieve it. Derek bowed his head, his expression turning serious. For me, that effort was mandatory. I had to survive as a mercenary, after all. Elant's gaze softened as she spoke, don't be so modest. I've always admired those who are willing to put in the work. But then, she glanced behind her, where the bald magic instructor was quietly reading a book. However, that old man teaching magic behind us doesn't seem to like you very much, so it's best not to do anything that might get under his skin. And one more thing, thank you. I've learned a lot of useful things today. She took a slow sip of tea before continuing, like today's match, I picked up quite a bit. There's a friendly match coming up at the Rosea Salon, and I hope for a good outcome. Derek looked at her, his voice firm, with your level of skill, I believe there is nothing to worry about. Elant placed her teacup on the table with a soft yet decisive clink, her eyes turning sharp and distant. I don't care about those small fry. When that name was uttered, an image of an elegant, noble girl with blue hair flashed through Elant's mind. Her face was clouded with the weight of intense rivalry and resolve. The person she truly wanted to defeat at any cost was Aisline Eleanor Duplain. Derek remained silent, his red eyes staring straight at her, absorbing the weight of that ambition. Finally, Elant realized she had said too much. She waved her hand, her voice returning to normal. Oh my, why did I say that? You may go now. Derek turned, his black cloak fluttering with every step as he left the pavilion. Left alone, Elant reached out to pick up her teacup again. She thought to herself, Derek of the Beldun mercenary troop? The name echoed in her head. She was certain she had heard it somewhere before. Memories suddenly came flooding back, the voice of Aisline mentioning Derek on that very day. Elant's eyes widened as if struck by lightning, and all the pieces suddenly clicked into place. She stood up abruptly, the sound of her footsteps echoing rapidly. Elant lunged forward, her hand tightly gripping Derek's arm just before he stepped out of the grounds. Derek turned his head, his expression calm but tinged with curiosity. Elant looked up at him, a fierce smile spreading across her face, her eyes burning with a new kind of desire. She asked directly, her voice trembling with excitement, "You are the mercenary who trained Daila, aren't you?" As the sun began to set, long orange shadows stretched across the grounds. The scene moved into a large room, where a crackling fireplace provided the only source of light and warmth. The two sat opposite each other at a small table. Elant didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. She leaned forward, her voice low and firm, "As long as I can surpass Aisline, I am willing to trade anything." Derek observed her closely, the firelight reflecting in his red eyes. "I'll repeat the name, you are the one who truly wants to win against Lady Aisline?" Elant nodded, "Yes. Aisline herself hasn't even reached the 2-star threshold yet. If I can reach 2-star level before her, that would be wonderful. But if I can't, at least I must beat her in this upcoming magic tournament." Derek remarked that her burning desire to win was truly admirable. Elant gave a light sneer, "A burning desire to win? You know how to use fancy words, don't you?" She looked down at her teacup, her reflection shimmering in the amber liquid. "Perhaps so, by now. It has become an obsession of mine. In the past, just because I wanted to beat Aisline, I didn't hesitate to use even the dirtiest of tricks. That envy and jealousy, it was truly filthy and ugly. I myself once held such deep-seated jealousy for Aisline, yet the result I got back was never as good as expected. No matter how much I tried to badmouth her behind her back or pick at her flaws, Aisline was always tolerant and ready to open her arms to shield me." Derek questioned, "Why are you telling me these things?" Elant looked him straight in the eyes, her voice sincere beyond doubt. "I am exposing my own weaknesses to show you just how serious I am. And I also have a few questions I need your help answering." Derek replied calmly, "Please, go ahead and ask, my lady." She took a deep breath. "If you have worked at the Duplain mansion, you must know it well, right? What is Aisline's true level of power, and compared to her, what is my standing? That is why I sought you out to ask these questions. If I truly want to defeat Aisline for once, what do I need to do?" The room fell silent, with only the sound of crackling firewood. Derek took a slow sip of tea, the sound of the cup hitting the saucer light and crisp. He admitted, "I must acknowledge that Lady Aisline's skills have reached an astonishing level. However, Lady Elant also possesses innate talent that is in no way inferior. But at this moment, even if you put all your effort into training..." His voice stopped abruptly when he saw Elant's eyes. "Sometimes, one can see through another's soul with just a glance, and the little girl standing in front of me right now isn't craving empty praise, but a truly intense longing. She is so desperate that she is willing to beg for answers from a lowly mercenary." Silence lingered in the room. Finally, Derek spoke, his voice steady and without hesitation. "You cannot defeat Lady Aisline." The cold words hung in the air. Elant didn't blink, even though her face tightened. Derek looked straight at Elant, waiting for her response. She replied, "No matter how difficult it is, I am determined to win at all costs. Even if it's impossible, I will do it." She leaned forward, pressing both hands firmly onto the table. "Didn't you turn a troublemaker like Daila into a mage? So, is it possible that you can't help me surpass Aisline even once?" Derek remained silent for a long time, his eyes half closed as if weighing his options. Finally, he admitted, "It is not entirely impossible, but before we begin, there are two things that bother me." Elant sat back and folded her arms, looking satisfied that he hadn't refused outright. "That's more like it. Now we can continue our conversation. What are you questioning?" Derek asked first. "The first thing. My lady, do you know what methods I used to instruct Lady Daila?" As he spoke, a dark memory rose in his mind. The image of Derek standing over it terrified, crying Daila. The sword drawn, his face cold and ruthless. Elant didn't blink and answered immediately, "I don't know the details, but I am willing to do anything to win." Derek moved to the second point. "As you know, I am a mercenary, so..." Elant didn't wait for him to finish and immediately cut him off. "What's the big deal about that? There will surely be unkind rumors that a noble lady is learning magic from a lowly mercenary. But Derek, remember that I am being extremely serious right now. I must become someone whose reputation echoes throughout this empire. If I cannot even manage to stand at the top of Ebelstein high society, then all my efforts become meaningless. So, don't use those ridiculous reasons to underestimate my burning determination. Because I understand very clearly what is truly more important than that vain sense of pride. Derek looked up at her, his expression completely unmoved by her eloquent speech. He calmly corrected her, "No, that is not what I meant. I want to say that as a mercenary, I need to charge for my services." The dramatic atmosphere in the room took a sudden turn. Ilant, who had prepared herself for a battle of wills regarding honor and status, was suddenly struck speechless. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she realized she had completely misunderstood him. "Ah, so it's about money. That was what you meant?" "Of course. No matter how much it is, I can easily afford it." Ilant tried to hide the embarrassment consuming her. "And why is it so hot in this room?" Opposite her, Derek's eyes narrowed, thinking to himself, if she values this so much, I must apply extremely harsh methods for her to have any hope of success. The scene shifted to the next day at a gathering of young ladies. Aisline was surrounded by other girls. The upcoming meeting will include magic combat. I heard rumors that Lady Ilant's skills have improved drastically. I myself need to prepare very carefully. Oh my, is it already time for the next meeting? Then I must definitely participate as well. From behind, Ilant slowly approached and spoke up. Lady Aisline is so very humble. Aisline turned to look and replied, "Lady Ilant, so you are here? We were just talking about you." Ilant stepped closer to the group. "I know, because I heard Lady Aisline's voice from afar." Two girls behind them felt they should step away. "It seems better if we don't interfere between them." Ilant smiled playfully, "But even Lady Aisline needs to train more? Haven't you never tasted defeat before? Moreover, you are known as the radiant flower of the Duplain family, aren't you?" Aisline bowed slightly. "Thank you so much for those compliments. But my opponent this time is Lady Ilant, so I absolutely cannot be careless." Hearing that, Ilant felt triumphant. "To be honest, I have a bit of confidence because I just found a new magic tutor. Even though he's a commoner, since he has a very impressive work record, I agreed to hire him." "That's strange, to the point that Lady Ilant personally hired him. It seems you trust the level of this new magic teacher quite a bit." Ilant pondered for a moment. To be precise, the one who has faith is not me, but Lady Aisline here." "What? My faith?" She turned to look at Aisline with a radiant smile and said, "Because the name of that tutor is Derek." Aisline's eyes widened. For a brief moment, she was stunned by the name. Seeing her rival's expression, Ilant smiled inwardly. "Ha ha ha, look at that blank, rabbit-like face of yours. Are you feeling angry? Are you resentful? The person even you couldn't keep has now fallen into my hands." But contrary to Ilant's thoughts, Aisline just replied gently, "Well, that's quite a surprise. Congratulations, Lady Ilant. Perhaps you have realized it yourself already, right? He is a person with very profound thoughts and is extremely reliable." Aisline gave a radiant, happy smile. "Once again, congratulations, Lady Ilant." The smile on Ilant's lips suddenly became awkward. Thank you. Wait, this isn't what I imagined." Speaking of which, Aisline suddenly remembered a conversation with her younger sister. "Daila, maybe I should try asking Derek to give you some extra magic guidance. Yes, lately I feel your power has stagnated a bit. If it's Derek, we can completely trust him with peace of mind." Daila heard that and immediately refused. "No need, truly not necessary. I feel there's no need to do that at all. Please don't ever do that. Because you are the most important person to me." Aisline was lost in her own thoughts. Ilant, standing next to her, was delighted. "That's right, Aisline. When you think it over carefully, you surely must understand what it means for me to snatch him away. Go ahead and harbor your resentment. I, Ilant, have stolen your teacher." Aisline snapped back to reality and said, "Oh Lady Ilant, actually Derek is a bit." But Ilant cut her off. "Oh my, is it this late already? Today's conversation was really interesting. Since today is the first lesson, I must take my leave." Ilant walked away while smiling at her daydreams, leaving Aisline feeling very confused. Surely it won't be anything too serious, right? Anyway, Derek isn't a bad person to that extent. Beside the two, a girl with white hair sipping tea had seen everything. She took a light sip of tea and thought, those people are trying to live their lives quite fiercely, aren't they? The scene returned to the Beldon mercenary troop. Derek was having a conversation with the captain. For now, that's it. In the coming time, I need to focus all my attention on that work. The Count Belmier family? Why is the scale of your work getting bigger and bigger? He replied calmly, moreover, I don't need to travel all the way to the Count's mansion, so it's less strenuous. Just handling everything neatly in Ebelstein is fine. Hey, it sounds easy, but do you think Our Lady can defeat Lady Eislein in that match? Derek looked at the cup of water in his hand. It's not entirely hopeless. I still have a way, as long as Lady Yolande can break through to the 2-star level. Even if she faces Lady Eislein, we can still use the superior star rank to crush her and win. Hearing that, the captain sighed. Alright then, forget about those impossible things. So, what is the most feasible plan you intend to do? I was just about to tell you about that method. That's why I need your help. His expression suddenly became serious. Besides, to ensure absolute safety, we need the additional support of Felon. He looked at him silently for a moment before grumbling. You brat, are you planning a highly dangerous plan instead of a feasible one? He replied, in reality, the nature of this work is already fraught with danger, isn't it? Felon, drunk, shouted nearby, that's right, extremely dangerous. Those bastards are all scammers. I was swindled by them once. I was cleaned out to my last coin by those deceptive crooks. Boo-hoo. The captain heard that and was speechless, not knowing what to say. Just take it and use it. The scene shifted to the afternoon at the Yolande family mansion. Derek was slowly explaining everything. First, we will start the lesson with practical combat. Basically, this will be repeated 10 times. After that, I will begin to delve into the details of the magic. Suddenly forcing me to fight 10 rounds in a row? Well, I need to carefully observe your practical abilities first. Yolande looked at him and smiled. That's the style of someone from the Mercenaries. Truly rude. But alright, I didn't hire you just to listen to old history lessons. Derek rolled up his sleeves, his hands beginning to gather surging magic power. Then, I'll begin. They practiced until sunset, the training floor covered in cracks and debris. Yolande was panting from exhaustion, sweat streaming down her forehead. Derek slowly approached and spoke. You've worked hard, my lady. Now take a 10-minute break, then we will summarize the basic magic knowledge. Hearing that, Yolande was astonished. What? Only 10 minutes? I have absolutely no mana left to use. He didn't care and continued, if you push yourself, you'll definitely have some left. This is not the standard shape of a fire spear. Focus your mind and create 10 more ice spears for me. Ha? More? This is not the standard shape of a fire spear. Focus your mind and create 10 more ice spears for me. Ha? More? Next, cast 100 more mana arrows for me. I really don't have any more magic power. Instead of wasting time making excuses, you should focus on creating one more arrow. After completing all of Derek's requests, Yolande lay flat on the ground, gasping for air. Her body felt limp, as if she had been running all day. He slowly stepped forward and spoke, You've worked hard all session, now you can go have dinner. His eyes narrowed as he continued, Are you still okay, my lady? If you feel you can't endure it, giving up is also an option. Hearing those provocations caused Yolande to sit bolt upright. Damn it, ha? After only this session, you want me to quit? You clearly threatened me a lot before starting the lesson. I thought you would be harsh, but it turns out it's just heavy labor. Perhaps you don't know what I've had to go through just to survive in the gossip-filled high society of Ebelstein. These minor things? To me, it's nothing. Is that so? Perhaps I underestimated you. I'm just a little tired today because I just came back from a social party. Starting tomorrow, I will show you my true capabilities. So, tomorrow, you should increase the training intensity to a harsher level. This gentle level isn't enough to hurt me at all. Hearing that, Derek looked confused. Tomorrow? What does the lady mean by that? The smile on Yolande's lips suddenly vanished. Ha? Derek looked straight at her, his eyes full of seriousness. Didn't I inform you? This is just the break for dinner. The atmosphere between the two suddenly froze. Yolande couldn't believe her ears and asked again, Haha, are you joking or just being witty? I didn't accept this job to joke around with the lady. They practiced from night until the next morning. His voice continued, Alright, my lady, please try a little harder. This is the last time, please create 5 more magic arrows for me. Elant gritted her teeth, her body trembling with fatigue. There is still a bit of magic energy left in your body. I want to see 10 more arrows. Why does the required amount keep increasing? A while later, the two moved to physical training. If you feel you can't run anymore, we will switch to magic power release training. Elant panted but still tried to refuse. Running, I'm running. After the harsh training session, she fell onto the chair as if about to faint, her face pale and drained of color. Derek stepped to her side and sat down. Are you still okay, my lady? Huh? Well, it's quite interesting. If it's truly too much, quitting is an option worth considering. Elant smiled. Huh? Who would want to surrender? I can handle these minor things easily. He looked at her with pensive eyes but said nothing. If so, it seems you've rested enough. Let's start the sparring session. Elant looked surprised. Oh, what? I only just managed to sit down. 2 weeks passed by. Elant arrived at the meeting of young ladies looking exhausted. She slumped her head on the table. Lady Denise, if Lady Eislein drops by, please wake me up. Yes, I understand, thank you so much. Lately, I've been busy training magic to the point I have no free time at all. Denise spoke calmly. I have a small question I want to ask you. Why do you have to push yourself to that extent? Elant remained silent, trying to organize her thoughts. It's all just to win, simply because I really want to win. Denise was momentarily stunned by her answer, but quickly smiled. Then please keep up the effort, I will definitely always support Lady Elant. Suddenly someone approached, making her turn her head. Eislein and 2 others were chatting happily. Denise hurriedly called Elant. My lady, Lady Eislein has arrived. Elant started and sat up. She awkwardly fixed her messy hair quickly, but all those actions fell into Eislein's view. I heard there's a new fashion boutique opening. Shall we go check it out together? Oh, sure. Let's go, let's go. Eislein looked up at Denise and asked, they're gone? Yes, they're gone. Phew, I bet she didn't see this miserable look of mine, did she? Maybe that was the case, but contrary to her speculation, Eislein had seen everything. She worriedly thought, Lady Elant, she looks so exhausted, is she truly okay? The scene shifted to the next day. A servant brushing Elant's hair spoke. My lady, there are gifts from the Duplain family for you. The Duplain family? She opened the box. Inside were very expensive herbal medicines along with an attached letter. It seems Lady Eislein personally sent these. All inside are items that support mana recovery. These high-class items will surely support the Lady Elant. But Elant had no interest in them. Throw them all away. Pardon? What did you say? Throw them all away for me, don't let those things be an eyesore anymore. Yes, I understand. Continue preparing for work. Has Derek arrived yet? Yes, he's been here since dawn and is currently ready. The content inside the letter sent to the ladies of the Roseate Association. Winter is near, it won't be long before white snowflakes begin to fall in this cold winter weather. Is everyone safe and healthy? It's fortunate that our territory has just produced many quality goods. Because I want to share this joy with the ladies I cherish, I am sending you these gifts. I hope today will be a truly peaceful day for you all. Best regards. The scene shifted outside. Derek was sitting on a chair reading his magic book. Suddenly there was a noise, catching his attention. Elant stretched and approached. Well, there isn't much time left. Let's skip the lengthy pleasantries. Suddenly she looked straight at him and asked, Hey Derek, from a professional's perspective, what do you think? What do you mean? You must know yourself. We've been training together for weeks now. I want to hear the honest truth. Derek remained silent for a while before softly speaking. Accepting defeat sometimes isn't a bad choice. The air suddenly froze, everything became tense. Elant turned back to look at him with a look of annoyance. You really only know how to annoy others, don't you? If those words offended you, I sincerely apologize. Hearing that made Elant even angrier. What? Surrender? When did I ever ask you about that? What I'm wondering is what to do. How must I fight to defeat Eislein? I didn't pay you just to listen to advice telling me to give up. If you're planning on spouting any more of that nonsense, just get lost and save me the trouble, you're only wasting my time. Suddenly, Derek spoke up, breaking the tension. If you can't win, then what meaning does all this effort even have? Sometimes, being too obsessed with winning is the very barrier hindering your own progress. There are times when bravely facing and admitting defeat. If I were to do that, I would look so pathetic and pitiful. Derek's voice trailed off, and he watched her in silence. I told you already, I'm just the type of person who badmouths Aisline behind her back. Whether it's being a core figure of the Belmiard House or the flower of the Rosea Society, I'm not worthy of those titles at all. My true nature is just someone harboring this much petty and disgusting envy. I've admitted to it all, everything. I know full well how naive and hateful someone like me is, and I've accepted the truth, that my hatred for Aisline never had a single justifiable reason to begin with. I understand that myself. But why? Why? Why does this damned feeling of inferiority and worthlessness keep clinging to me without fading away? Why? In the end, why? That is the resentment I have toward myself. Even if I have to expose all my weaknesses, I still want you to see how serious I am. Besides, I have 3 important things I need to ask you. Deep within Ilan's soul, there had always been an intense self-loathing. If my ultimate goal is to defeat Aisline, what do I need to do? At first, I thought it was purely just jealousy or a fleeting ambition for victory. But it turned out the person this girl truly hated wasn't Aisline, but the target of that hate was her own self. This battle did not stem from sudden envy. There is only one path that can help her escape from self-hatred and her inferiority complex. If that's the case, then just focus on winning. To fight Lady Aisline, I will personally help you achieve victory. His words were like an encouragement, causing her spirits to immediately recover. The scene shifted to a carriage rolling across a vast rice field. When the destination appeared before them, the horse finally slowed to a stop. The door opened and the bald mage stepped out slowly. We've arrived. He looked ahead toward the territory and the mansion of Count Belmiard. From inside the castle, a middle-aged man walked out happily and spoke. How was it? Was the trip to Ebelstein all right? The professor bowed respectfully. Are you still well, my lord count? He smiled and replied, traveling such a long distance must be tiring, sit down and rest. He was the lord of the Belmiard region, Tristan Arnel Belmiard. The two quickly entered the living room to chat. How long has it been since I last saw my beloved? While you were there, was she doing well? Yes, my lord, lately the young lady has been putting all her effort into practicing magic. The count laughed heartily, satisfied. Haha, I haven't seen any young lady with as much natural talent as my Elant. With that gift, she will surely surpass me soon. The old professor bowed his head in admiration. Haha, I hope so too. I absolutely must not let him know she's studying with a commoner. If it leaks out, both I and Lady Elant will be in big trouble. Oh, that's right, I have some business to attend to in Ebelstein soon. Hearing that made him startle and panic. Yes, the count stroked his beard, calculating. If I suddenly show up and surprise her with a gift, how do you think she'll react? Haha, the young lady will surely be very happy. I wonder if I'll survive this part. The scene moved to the outskirts of Ebelstein, at a nameless dungeon. Feline stepped forward, her voice full of suspicion. I still feel like something is wrong. Sending a fragile young lady like that into a dungeon, is that really okay? Belden stood with his hands on his hips, responding calmly, I'm sure Derek has it all planned out. Elant pointed at herself in worry. Wait, you mean I have to go into that dungeon? Me? He glanced at her and reassured her softly, this is the lowest level dungeon in this area, it's nothing difficult. Even so, what could I possibly do in there? Are you expecting me to just charge straight in? You need to hone your instincts through practical combat. To prevent any mishaps, my colleagues and I will follow close behind. Hearing that, Elant remained extremely bewildered. Are you serious? Are you joking with me? The duel is only a few days away. Time is running out. This is the most optimal method. After saying that, Derek cast magic and stepped into the dungeon, leaving Elant still indecisive about whether to continue or stop. The four of them quickly walked through the dark, damp hallway, fear making Elant's face turn pale. She looked at the hideous things on the walls and wondered, what the hell kind of things are those over there? Derek didn't answer, he only cautioned her carefully, prepare yourself mentally. Even if it's a bottom-tier dungeon, you must remain extremely vigilant. His seriousness made the atmosphere even more tense. Elant stepped back slightly without saying another word. Suddenly, Feline sensed something coming. Derek, a group of goblins is heading our way in front. Huh? What? I hear them. Before she could regain her composure, new news came from behind from Belden. Derek, there's something huge behind us. Is that an ogre? Is that an ogre? He assigned tasks calmly. Can you handle that ogre, sir? Humph, that depends on how much more you're paying me. Derek's expression remained as emotionless as ever. We'll settle the pay later. Before him now, countless pairs of red eyes were staring intensely from the shadows, with killing intent filling the air. Seeing that, Elant's whole body trembled, her mind felt as if it had wandered into a maze. Are they doing this for real? Monsters! The moment those words were spoken, the goblins began to charge crazily. Derek drew his sword and leaped forward to engage them. Before rushing into battle, Derek didn't forget to instruct Feline, protect the young lady. His sword glowed with aura. These small fries, I don't think we need to worry too much. From behind, Feline also fired arrows for support. The arrow tore through the air and pierced straight into the center of a goblin's forehead, causing it to fall backward before it could do anything. Derek unleashed chaos alone amidst the monster swarm. Every strike easily took them down. Derek's other hand unleashed fire magic. Feline fired 2 arrows simultaneously to attack. The battlefield suddenly became one-sided as blood splattered, each monster falling before the power of the two. That frenzied scene left Elant dizzy, sweat soaking her face as her breath hitched. Suddenly, a savage roar from behind startled her. When Elant turned back, the giant figure of an ogre appeared. It held a massive club in its hand. Belden hoisted his heavy sword and smiled. How much is that head of yours worth? The ogre roared madly and lunged, but its arm was easily severed by Belden in a heartbeat. Elant stood frozen in place, her mind spinning with her own thoughts. What is happening? They're actually killing them. I might lose my life. It's crazy, it's truly crazy, no way. While she was bewildered and didn't know what to do, a roar from the front pulled her back to reality. Derek turned his head and shouted loudly, "Young lady, one is charging toward you, wake up." Elant's body stiffened, her eyes filled with despair. I'm dead, this is the end." Derek's words seemed to snap her out of her fear. Do I have to take it down? But I've never hunted monsters before. Memories of herself flooded her mind, tormenting her with her own helplessness. The goblin lunged, its eyes filled with insane, mindless frenzy. Until now, I've only been good at boasting while accomplishing nothing. I'm just someone who only knows how to be envious and badmouth others behind their backs, a piece of trash. But I have been trying to change. Her hand quickly gathered magic power. An ice spear was formed with a new, unshakable resolve. I am here to end my old self and become a better version. Because of that, don't you dare think you can stand in my way. A dry sound rang out as the ice spear pierced through the monster's body. Elant had taken down her first goblin ever. Belden and Feline stood watching everything with quite satisfied expressions. Elant was still shocked by what had just happened. Her body trembled incessantly, her breath heavy with fatigue. She looked toward Derek, where he was looking at her with an approving nod. This is just the beginning, she told herself. No, finally, I've been able to take one more step forward. Outside the mysterious dungeon, the air was as gloomy as ever, with white light illuminating everything in the darkness. Contrary to that, inside, Derek was leisurely reading his letter. Dear Derek, it's been over 2 years, hasn't it, since the day I left Ebelstein. Sorry for being so slow to get in touch. Currently, I am teaching magic to the daughter of Count Elvester. She is so eager to learn that she keeps me busy spinning around teaching her everything. I remember when I used to walk the streets of Ebelstein and teach you magic. Life was a bit difficult, but it was much freer and happier. Among all the mages I've met in my life, Derek, you are the most talented. What level have you reached now? If we have a chance to meet again, show me your magic. Former teacher, Katia Flameheart. He stared intently at the letter for a long time without saying anything. Next to him, Elant saw this and asked, I've been here for 2 weeks, and whenever you're free, I see you burying your head in that reading. Can I ask what it is yet? Derek slowly folded the letter and replied, It's a letter from my teacher. Hearing that, Elant felt intrigued. Well, she must be a wonderful teacher. If she was patient enough to teach a child like you, that truly is something. Derek didn't quite understand and replied calmly, She is indeed very excellent. His answer left Elant frozen for several seconds. Did you just mock me? Where? Forget it. It's nothing. He put the letter into his pocket and spoke. The competition is in 2 days, isn't it? How are you feeling? Feelings? I'm not really sure about that. She turned to look at him and smiled radiantly. It's just that this time, I must defeat her. The scene shifted 2 days later to the Noble Area Magic Arena. The atmosphere here was extremely vibrant. As usual, Aisline was surrounded by many other young ladies. Suddenly, her eyes stopped on someone. In the crowd of nobles, a familiar figure had just passed by, catching her attention. Aisline bowed slightly. "Please excuse me for a moment." She ran to his side and called out loudly, "Mr. Derek. Mr. Derek. It's a joy to see you again." He also bowed politely. "Long time no see, my lady," Aisline continued, eagerly asking. "I heard you are supporting Lady Yolante with magic, right?" Derek bowed his head slightly to acknowledge, "Yes, we just happen to know each other." Their conversation suddenly fell into silence. Aisline tilted her head, bewildered, and exclaimed, "Mr. Derek is still the same, isn't he? Aren't you being too strict with Lady Yolante?" Daila once said, "Mr. Derek is no ordinary teacher. Lately, Lady Yolante has been looking quite tired." Hearing that answer left Derek slightly confused. "Still worrying about her opponent like this? You're quite confident, aren't you?" Derek looked at her seriously and offered some useful advice. "No matter who the opponent is, don't be overconfident." Aisline was slightly stunned by the tension he created. A while later, the duel finally arrived. In the stands, the ladies were talking incessantly about the outcome. "So who do you think will win?" "Naturally, Lady Aisline, unless Lady Yolante can use level 2 magic." Poor Lady Yolante, she looks so gaunt. From the arena floor, Aisline slowly walked up with her usual elegance. "Oh my, Lady Aisline is here. Well, she looks as beautiful as ever today." On the other side of the arena, Yolante took firm steps onto the stage, muttering to herself, must win at all costs." She stared intently at her opponent, her determination rising. Must win. Below the stands, Derek was also observing his student carefully. Aisline bowed politely. "How are you, Lady Yolante?" Yolante responded with a smile. "How are you, Lady Aisline? Your calm demeanor truly is a good example for me." But unexpectedly, Aisline denied it. "Not really. There has never been a match that excited me as much as this one." Both of them looked straight at each other. "Then let's begin. Truthfully, I've been looking forward to this match as well." Yolante's hand began to gather flaming red fire magic. On the other side, Aisline created magic that felt more refined and skillful. The entire arena was suddenly occupied by the two sources of energy. The air became tense. Yolante began to release mana and cast a spell. Countless magic arrows were created in the sky. Aisline's eyes widened in amazement. Before her now was a rain of arrows covering the vast sky. Yolante was filled with determination. She recalled Derek's instructions back in the dungeon. "If you fight using pure magic skill, you cannot win. Then what should I do? How can I win?" Derek wiped the blood from his face and answered clearly, "Will. The method of squeezing out mana to the last limit. You learned that from me, didn't you?" "Ha? Is torturing me your hobby?" "I don't have such strange hobbies. If both exhaust their mana, the result will be decided by willpower, not skill. Cast the most spectacular and powerful magic you can. Prolong the match into a war of attrition. When the war of attrition ends, whoever has squeezed out more mana, even by a single drop, will be the winner." Hearing that made Yolante wonder, "But what if Aisline's mana pool is much larger than mine?" He replied bluntly, "Then you will lose. Most mana quantity is innate talent. And Lady Aisline has the blood of the Belmiard family. Because of that, put your faith in yourself." Aisline on the opposite side was still shocked. "Lady Yolante is this good?" Yolante's arm was raised high, ready for a powerful preemptive strike. A storm of arrows flew toward Aisline, but she quickly regained her composure and cast her own magic. "But even so, I must win." Their eyes met in mid-air. The determination was undeniable. "I absolutely cannot lose this battle." Upon the signal, successive fire arrows flew straight toward Aisline. Yolante's eyes were filled with determination as she accepted this attack. On the opposite side, Aisline summoned a defensive shield to absorb the incoming attack. Consecutive arrows struck the protective barrier, causing it to vibrate violently. A series of explosions occurred, making everyone on the outside extremely excited. "Is that Lady Yolante's magic? It seems her mana quantity has increased tremendously." After the smoke and dust cleared, Aisline was still safe behind her protective barrier. She thought to herself, "The destructive power is terrifying. But she's just firing randomly." Observing from the inside, she saw Yolante changing positions, wanting to attack from behind. Aisline was interested. "Found you." Her hands summoned a magic ice arrow. "My turn now, Lady Yolante." After the magic was completed, Aisline fired the attack toward Yolante at high speed. But the young lady at this moment seemed not to realize the attack was heading toward her and continued to move. When the arrow got close to Yolante's body, it immediately pierced straight through her easily. "Same as above." "What? Is it a magic illusion? To maintain an illusion like this must surely consume a huge amount of mana. As soon as she realized that, Elant had appeared behind her back with an ice arrow in her hand. When she turned her head, Elant was already very close, preparing to launch the attack. Returning to Elant a few days ago, Derek's explanation sounded, "It will just be blocked." This left Elant a bit surprised. "What?" he explained. "First, she will use fire arrows to occupy your vision. Then use an illusion to deceive. Following that is closing in and releasing ice spears at close range. Even someone with seasoned experience would easily reveal a flaw and take the hit. But your opponent isn't just at a normal level of experience." Returning to the present, Elant was still pouring all her thoughts into this attack. On the opposite side, Aisline began to analyze, an ice spear at such close range? There's no time left to deploy defensive magic anymore. Then, without a moment of hesitation, she stretched her arm forward, forming a small manosphere spinning in front of her. Elant still lunged forward, wanting to deliver a decisive blow. The manosphere in Aisline's hand gradually took form. Just as it was completed, it fired straight into the space in front. The pressure from the attack made her recoil backward and maintain distance from the attack Elant was launching. That was indeed it, Elant's attack slammed straight into the ground. Aisline's eyes were extremely focused on this battle. Elant couldn't help but be surprised by the scene just now. What was that just now? On the opposite side, Aisline also fell into a similar state of tension. That was close. She remembered what Derek said to her, no matter who the opponent is, don't be too complacent. At this moment, Aisline also understood that. Now I understand what Derek wanted to say. From her level of control to the way she operated magic, everything was different compared to before. If so, then I also. Immediately, countless magic power vortices appeared under her feet. Then from there, a series of ice arrows began to appear according to her command. There's no other way but to go all out. Moreover, I am very confident in my destructive power. Successive ice arrows flew straight into the air, preparing for a decisive attack. The people observing outside began to gossip, are they all ice spears? And she didn't even need to chant. That quantity is truly respectable. Derek was also intently observing the battle below. Returning to the duel, Aisline thought to herself, right now, I can clearly see the incredible progress Miss Elant has made. Elant always had her own preparations. She flicked her hand behind her as if intending to do something. From the direction of the sun high above, something suddenly appeared. Aisline's gaze was full of determination. Then let's see you try to block this attack. On the other side, Elant's gaze became intensely focused. Immediately after, she channeled mana into her arm again. Then, a fire arrow shot straight down from the sun toward Aisline, catching her completely off guard. A rain of arrows easily shattered all of Aisline's ice arrows before her stunned eyes. Fire missiles? Since when? I didn't sense any incantations or mana flow at all. She began to analyze the situation. Was it at that moment? Did she hide a shot in advance to wait for this moment? Was everything within her calculations? The fire arrow struck the ground right at Aisline's feet while she stood motionless, not even dodging. Elant's face was filled with confidence regarding this attack. Aisline was still lost in her thoughts. I can't predict her attacks. I truly don't know what Miss Elant will do next. Up on the sidelines, the others began to gossip. What's going on? Are the two of them fighting on equal terms? Back in the battle, Elant was joyous. This match is starting to get interesting. Does this mean I'm holding the advantage over Aisline right now? As for Aisline, a thought crossed her mind. In the current situation, I can't win. In terms of both strategy and boldness, Miss Elant is one step ahead. She reassured herself, I need to reset the situation from the start. Observing Aisline's determined gaze, Derek spoke up with interest. Now it really begins. Aisline's lips muttered something. Her entire body suddenly erupted with an enormous amount of mana. Witnessing this scene made Elant, standing opposite her, feel a bit apprehensive. Under the immense pressure created by Aisline, Elant had to cover her face with her hands. Is she manipulating the wind? Why is there sudden wind? If it's magic, then the mana. Suddenly, Elant sensed something. At that moment, the space between the two was completely separated from the outside environment. We could no longer sense mana from the surrounding environment. In the blink of an eye, all the surrounding mana had vanished. Mana restructuring is a phenomenon where environmental mana adjusts instantaneously when faced with an overwhelming source of mana. When a mage releases mana beyond their own threshold, this phenomenon occurs in the surrounding space. After returning everything to its original state, a fireball began to appear from Aisline's hand. Within just a few seconds, it grew into a colossal sphere. Facing this immensely powerful attack made Elant break out in a cold sweat. Derek, watching from above, briefly assessed, Miss Aisline has now surpassed her own limits. And the attack she is creating right now, it is a 2-star fireball. Returning to a grueling training session the day before, Elant lay exhausted on the ground, breathing heavily. Derek approached and offered her a water bottle. "Drink some water." She sat up and replied, "Ah, thank you." She was troubled in her heart. "Derek, honestly, I'm not even sure anymore, but will I really be able to beat Aisline? With just a few short weeks of training like this?" He offered words of encouragement. "You will win, Mississippi. To be more precise. Yes, you will definitely win." His words served as encouragement, giving Elant more strength. Returning to the present, the other young ladies were incredibly surprised by Aisline's change. Could that be? It can't possibly be. Is that a fireball? Is it a 2-star fireball? Faced with the power of the attack before her, Elant was deeply confused. Why use a fireball at a time like this? This wasn't part of the plan. She glanced toward Derek as if seeking help. "Derek, what is this? What should I do now?" She glanced toward Derek as if seeking help. "Derek, what is this? What should I do now?" Elant felt like crying. "Stop making that face. Tell me what to do, you jerk." But he still didn't respond. Meanwhile, the fireball shot straight toward her. Facing this incredibly powerful attack, Elant could only scream in terror. "I don't know what to do right now. Defensive magic? How can I block that 2-star attack? Should I use ice lances?" But she immediately dismissed that thought. "That method won't work. Just as I thought, defeating Aisline is impossible. How could someone like me do it?" Denise watched the battle without any surprise, while the other young ladies were completely stunned by this attack. In the decisive moment, Elant used the same technique Aisline had used earlier. She created a sphere, then used the recoil force of the attack to push her body backward, dodging the incoming sphere. Everything she did was captured in Aisline's gaze. Immediately after, a massive explosion erupted in the middle of the arena. The pressure of the attack was so great that Elant had to cover herself with her hands, but then her whole body was still blown backward by the pressure. After the recent attack, Aisline breathed heavily, looking extremely tired. On the opposite side, Elant was in a similar state. Aisline couldn't believe what had just happened. "Miss Elant, she dodged it? And she even used the very tactic I had used before." Derek observed the battle from the outside with his own private thoughts. How truly immature. "She's stubborn, trying to use 2-star magic when she's not skilled enough. It's no different from a monster devouring all her mana." Aisline's arm was trembling uncontrollably after the recent attack. She tried to clench her fist to regain her composure. Witnessing her actions, Derek gave his assessment. Miss Aisline has acknowledged the effort and talent of Miss Elant. That is why she is pouring out all her power now. That is the respect for an opponent, someone who has tried their absolute best to stand in this position. Elant's lips curled up in excitement. "I understand what you mean, Derek. If I can hold my ground, I will win." At that very moment, Aisline on the opposite side unleashed the 2-star sphere once more. Aisline tried to focus as much as she could on this attack. As soon as the fireball was completed, she threw it straight at Elant. The brown-haired lady on the sidelines was extremely worried. "Another fireball? This time it's flying much faster than before." As for Elant, she ran around the arena, trying to find an opening to dodge this attack. As soon as she found an opening, Aisline decided to finish it, striking straight at Elant. Elant was still trying to move to find space. Just as the fireball neared, she lowered her body, planted her hands on the ground, and then used the spring force to jump high into the air to dodge the lethal attack. Seeing her hovering in midair made Aisline narrow her eyes and look up. High above, a look of excitement spread across Elant's lips. Then she channeled mana again, creating another ice arrow. With this, how can you predict its trajectory? Putting up a shield now would only waste more mana. What will you do next, Aisline? The words finished, and the ice arrow shot straight down. Faced with this attack, Aisline immediately placed her hands on the ground. In just a split second, she created an ice wall that blocked the attack. Watching this action, Elant judged, that's not defensive magic. It's just releasing mana. She has run out of mana after creating those two fireballs. Then she landed gently and turned her gaze toward Aisline. On this side, Aisline was extremely exhausted after launching countless attacks. Derek observed from the outside, thinking to himself, it's almost over. Elant's face was filled with confidence. I did it. I've cornered Aisline. She doesn't have a drop of mana left, and my mana is still enough to use fire missiles. Or at least 2 more ice lances. That's more than enough. This time I've beaten Aisline. But then, from behind the protective magic, a fireball slowly emerged. It shattered the shield, leaving Elant with an expression of complete disbelief. That was almost the last of Aisline's mana poured into this attack. Immediately after, she was blown backward by the pressure of the attack and fell hard to the ground. But the attack lacked precision, grazing past Elant and shooting straight into the sky. At this moment, Aisline was still struggling to pull herself up. Her whole body was shaking. She looked at her trembling arm and tried to reassure herself, please just one more time. Just a little bit more. Looking at the meager amount of mana left on her arm left her feeling a bit disappointed. On this side, unsure of her intentions, Elant stood calmly observing. Meanwhile, a flicker of anticipation shone in Aisline's eyes. The scene shifts to Elant's memories of the past. Honestly, in this entire Ebelstein region, there is no lady more noble than Aisline. But wherever there is a bright light, there must surely be a shadow. But wherever there is a bright light, there must surely be a shadow. I have always been nothing but a shadow chasing that brilliant light. Elant had used every trick in the book to lower Aisline, but all failed. After all, she is a pampered lady, coddled since she was a child. Being stabbed in the back like this, do you think you're so special? Turn your face around here. Try to throw a pathetic tantrum for me to see. But when Aisline turned around, there was no anger there at all, only a smile as pure as the morning sun on her lips. Aisline was like a precious gem. The more it was polished, the more brilliantly it shone, and that light was so blinding that it made me completely eclipsed. I just kept sinking deeper into the abyss of inferiority. Even so, I never stopped silently sharpening my blade in that darkness. There will come a day when I will surely surpass you to prove my self-worth no matter what, and then I will escape from this hollow pit. It must be so. Returning to reality, Aisline is collapsing on the arena floor from exhaustion, while Elant still has enough mana for 2 more attacks. She observed intently and thought to herself, Aisline is noble and beautiful. Even when her hair is messy and she is covered in mud like that, even if she has to fall and roll on the ground in front of so many people, how can she still keep such a calm face? It seems that for her, there is no image that needs to be desperately maintained. Yes, she was always like that, only knowing how to give her all to do everything before her as well as possible. In the stands, countless cheers erupted. Miss Aisline, come on. You can definitely do it. Get up, miss. Elant slowly created magic in the palm of her hand. Her eyes glanced toward Derek, who was observing. Can I truly beat Aisline? His words clearly rang in her mind. You will definitely win, Mississippi. But then everything around Elant vanished, leaving only an infinite emptiness. Is it finally over? Will I escape this deep abyss right here? But then those dark tentacles pulled Elant into the water once again. No. Even if I win this match, in the end, I will still be trapped in this place forever. But then those dark tentacles pulled Elant into the water once again. No. Even if I win this match, in the end, I will still be trapped in this place forever. Unexpectedly, Elant stepped forward and spoke. That's too bad. I've run out of mana. How can I keep fighting like this? Aisline was bewildered and confused by her actions. Elant walked up and bowed slightly. You truly are Miss Aisline. I really can't beat you. I surrender. That was a wonderful match. The entire crowd erupted in cheers. Wow, Miss Aisline is amazing. Both of them looked at each other silently. Elant gave a faint smile, while Aisline appeared full of indescribable confusion. After the match ended, countless young ladies crowded around Aisline to congratulate her. Congratulations, Miss Aisline. When did you learn 2-star magic? This match impressed me so much. Suddenly, Aisline's gaze was drawn to someone. Far away, Elant was slowly stepping off the arena. She walked up to Derek, who was reading a book, and spoke softly. How about it? Did you see clearly? He replied, that's enough. She excitedly recounted, surprisingly, right? I'm someone who knows how to accept defeat. You should have seen Aisline's face at that moment. Derek asked curiously, what did she look like? Elant continued, her jaw hit the floor. like she was about to give up right then and there. It was all over her face. Aisline is usually so composed, I didn't know she could make a face like that. It's so funny. Seeing that expression was worth losing. She smiled, thank you so much. Thanks to you, I felt like I had the upper hand when fighting Aisline. I'm in a great mood today. How do you see me, after all? The ending is a bit regrettable, but not bad, right? It seems I learned pretty quickly, don't I? Stop standing there criticizing everything. After speaking, tears suddenly started rolling down Elant's cheeks. Ha! She looked at her palms with confusion. Oh, what's this? Why am I crying? Elant slumped down and sobbed. What is this? I'm not a child anymore. Derek offered a quiet comfort. You did a flawless job, Mississippi. You've worked hard. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. No one said a word. And then Elant broke the stifling atmosphere with a reply. Actually, I really wanted to win. But you know, when I was about to unleash the final attack, I realized something. Even if I won now, I would still be stuck in the same place. I would have to go back to that pathetic place again. Yes, I am that kind of person after all. At that moment, Aisline still looked so noble. Regarding this inferiority, I think I've definitely beaten Aisline. Derek calmly replied, I am no different from you, Mississippi. What does it matter if you're a little pathetic? If you don't have the courage to be pathetic, you will never progress. Anyway, you gave it your all. The result isn't that important. In the hallway, only the two of them remained as the sun set. Elant seemed to have let go of her burden. But at least today, I don't feel trapped anymore. Far away, Miss Denise had seen it all. She watched silently as if trying to understand something. After the guests left, Denise slowly approached to congratulate her. We will take our leave now, Miss Aisline. Today's match was truly excellent. She replied, thank you all. Denise smiled faintly and spoke, Miss Aisline has had another brilliant success. Watching you compete gave me goosebumps. Hearing this, Aisline wasn't happy but replied, Miss Denise, you know it too, don't you? Regarding this match, the real winner isn't me. Denise bowed slightly and smiled. She neither agreed nor denied it. Aisline observed intently, waiting for a sincere comment. But Denise's answer remained the same as everyone else's. In terms of magical skill, I find Miss Aisline to be much better than I am. Aisline narrowed her eyes, thinking to herself, that's not it. There's something that can make up for the difference in skill. Miss Elant has surpassed me in every way. Her rapid progress in such a short time, is it all thanks to him? Aisline looked up, her gaze full of determination as if she already had the answer. She softly called her servant, Daisy? Yes, Mississippi. I need to send a letter to the main residence for the head of the house. Prepare it quickly. Derek, I want you by my side. The scene shifts back to the Duke's mansion. He held the letter in his hand and exclaimed, Dreist Wohltail. What is an old man like him doing coming all the way to Ebelstein? His eldest son replied, I am not sure of the reason, but it seems the tariff agreement has been pushed up to deal with Dreist's moves. The Duke contemplated. I've been wondering why Mark Belmiard was so determined to come to Ebelstein. It seems this matter is related to that old man Dreist, a master of high-level magic, possessing clairvoyance. He must surely have some objective. Valerian spoke calmly, Father, I also just received a letter from Aisline. She wants us to help find a magic tutor. He looked up indifferently, just find someone for her. But Valerian quickly refused. The problem is she specifically asked for Derek, which is why a problem arose. Currently, Derek is at the Belmiard house teaching magic to Miss Elant. Hearing this, the Duke fell into deep thought. How about you send a butler to negotiate aggressively? But he immediately dismissed the idea, forget it. In any case, I have to go to Ebelstein because of Dreist, so I will handle this directly when I am there. The scene shifts back to Miss Elant's mansion. She was sipping tea with Derek in the late afternoon. Derek, I intend to take a break for a while. I need to pause my studies and everything else, so I have time to organize my thoughts. Will you still work for the Beldun Mercenary Guild? Derek nodded faintly. Yes, of course. Suddenly, she kicked his leg lightly. Derek, she leaned forward and observed him intently. An interested smile appeared on her face as Elant spoke. If I call, will you come back to me? I mean, to continue teaching me magic. Derek pondered for a moment and quickly replied, Of course I will. But I'm not sure I have any knowledge left to pass on to you, Mississippi. Hearing that, Elant leaned back, teasing, Come on, why are you being so modest all of a sudden? It doesn't sound like you at all. Well, winter is starting to fade, isn't it? Such a long winter, don't you agree? Time passed quickly until evening at the Beldun Mercenary Guild. The door slowly opened, startling Feline out of her gambling stupor. She waved happily at the person who had just walked in. Derek smiled faintly as the familiar scene came into view. I'm home. The next morning, a carriage rolled straight toward the bustling city. Inside sat the excited Margrave. Back at her mansion, Ilant was still fast asleep after saying goodbye to Derek. Suddenly, a knock at the door annoyed her. Oh my god, what is it? I said I'm taking the day off. I'm skipping my outside lessons today. The maid explained slowly, my lady, I think you should go out and see. Ilant wearily stepped out of bed and trudged toward the door. Why? I told you to say I wasn't home. This is so. When the door opened, Ilant complained, didn't you hear me? From today on, I will. Before her stood the excited, smiling Margrave. Oh, Ilant, it's been so long since we last saw each other, hasn't it? My pride, my treasure, my precious gem. Before he could finish his sentence, the door slammed shut coldly. Ilant panicked, thinking to herself, why is father here? She opened the door slightly and smiled. Ha, what brings you all the way here, father? I'll be out as soon as I change. Please wait a moment. The door closed again, despite the Margrave muttering to himself, oh my dear, the gem of my heart. A while later, the two sat down to talk about what had just happened. A lady of the Duplain house is certainly not an easy opponent to handle. Ilant responded awkwardly, yes, but thanks to that, I've learned a lot of things. Is that so? If that mercenary can teach so well, then we should keep him at the Belmiard house permanently. Ilant was stunned into silence, but immediately replied, but my subordinates will definitely object. The Margrave laughed happily. Ah, don't worry. Is there anything I can't do for you? Just trust me. Ilant's face showed clear excitement. This was clearly what she wanted most. Switching to the monster dungeon, Derek was hunting monsters with Feline as usual. She turned around and shouted a warning, Derek, behind you. A goblin rushed to attack Derek from behind, but he had already spotted it. As he turned to counterattack, the flow of mana suddenly shifted into an unusual red color. Derek's eyes were filled with surprise. He thought, this feeling is. He directed his mana orb straight at the goblin. 3rd star level? Derek's eyes widened in focus, activating his firewall magic. Immediately, the dungeon was engulfed in a blinding light. Feline turned back, worried, and shouted loudly, Derek! A powerful explosion shook the ground, scattering the birds in the forest in fear. After the hunt, the two returned to the Beldun Mercenary Guild. What? Derek almost lost his life? Feline sighed helplessly. Don't bring it up again. God, are all mages like that? Why would you use a 3rd star spell just to hunt goblins? Derek looked at his palm and replied, at that moment, I felt the coordination between the mana circuits get out of sync. It's exactly the same as the first time I reached the 2nd star. Suddenly, someone's voice rang out from behind him, causing him to turn around. Don't be impatient when you hit a limit. There's no need to force yourself to overcome it. Doesn't the wild school always aim for naturalness? But these kinds of tips probably don't mean much to a mage like you, do they? Derek narrowed his eyes, thinking, I couldn't sense a shred of mana radiating from him at all. Yet, the person standing in front of him was definitely the first and greatest 6th star adventurer mage. He slowly pulled his hat down and said, if you have some good wine, bring it here for me to have a few cups. I'm a bit tired from the long journey. The wandering soul, Dreist Wooltail, back to the Duke's mansion. Daila was working hard on practicing magic in the dark. Her eyes were determined. A magic arrow was summoned from beneath the ground and gradually appeared. Daila clenched her fist, trying to summon even more magic arrows, but as the number increased, she began to lose control of them. The arrows began to shatter into pieces. Daila slumped to the ground, screaming, what is going on? This is so frustrating. From behind, Ray walked up and smirked. I thought you'd be more mature now that you're older. Who would have thought your temper would be exactly the same? How long have you been standing there? Ray tilted his head and remarked, still, you managed to control 5 of them, didn't you? Must be thanks to a good teacher. Daila turned her face away and replied, no, it's just because I did well. What could that selfish Derek possibly help with? Ray stepped closer and said, I heard Aisline wants to hire that arrogant guy as a magic tutor for her. What? No way. What if she has to suffer just like I did? Don't say such misleading things about Derek. I was at a ball the other day and overheard that Miss Elant also wants to keep Derek on the payroll. Daila pouted, thinking, why is that guy so popular? If he can turn a stubborn brat into a decent person, it's only natural he'd be famous. Ha? Who's stubborn? Well, you were before. If Derek chooses Eislein, that would be interesting, right? Maybe that'll give you a chance to see him again. That person named Derek you've been missing day and night. Daila's face turned bright red with embarrassment. When did I miss him? Never mind, I'll just pretend I didn't hear that. He continued, news travels fast, everyone probably knows about Derek by now. I just hope no one else jumps in to compete for him. Scene moves inside the tavern. Dreist was leisurely enjoying a delicious glass of beer. Derek looked at him, thinking to himself, Dreist Wolftail. Why would a mage of this caliber appear in a place like this? After finishing his beer, he let out a relieved sigh and turned to ask, your name is Derek, isn't it? He nodded to confirm, that's right. Does he know who I am? He immediately made an offer, if you don't mind, could we talk for a moment? Just the two of us. He was a bit hesitant at the request, but then the two stepped outside the town. Walking in front, Dreist assessed, your magical talent is too vague. This is definitely something you've never heard of, because your skills are quite exceptional. Derek, behind him, continued to listen to his words. He suddenly asked, why do you have to try so hard? What do you hope to achieve by learning magic? He replied, I don't have such grand ambitions. I just feel that once I've grasped even a little bit of talent, I'm simply curious to know how far I can go and how much further I can reach. This pleased Dreist, and his lips curled up with interest. As a commoner, if you dream of reaching a higher level than you are now, then you are still lacking a bit in your current state. Shall I help you? The sudden offer made him even more suspicious. A 6-star mage, Dreist Wolftail, born a commoner. He reached the 2nd star upon reaching adulthood. And when he started a family, he reached the 3rd star. That commoner-born mage became a beacon of hope for all commoners. His village became an ivory tower for commoner mages to look up to. Then, in the year he became a 4th star, a great tragedy struck his life. At that moment, he returned to his beloved home. As he entered, a horrific scene appeared before his eyes. He had lost his family. Shifting to another location, a voice called out, Dreist, have you managed to stay still for even a moment? The other replied, yes, Count. Dreist has gone into hiding. And those arrogant commoner mages have kept quiet as well. The Red Duke mocked, those lowlives are so easily scared and tuck their tails at the first sign of trouble. That's how individuals are. Why should commoners be so greedy about magic in the first place? If Dreist is absent again, then. Because the bald man's head had just been sliced off by something. Looking at the shadow behind him, the Duke shouted, Dreist. Terrified, he tried to turn and run, but was immediately cut off at the leg by Dreist's hand. Before he could recover, his other leg was also sliced off. Losing his balance, the Duke fell to the ground, screaming in fear. AAA. Please spare me. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Please, I beg you. As he spoke, his tongue was sliced off by Dreist's magic. Immediately after, countless agonizing screams erupted from inside the mansion. Afterwards, for 13 long years, he lived on the run from the royal family and the nobility. When Dreist crossed the 5th star threshold and became a 6-star anti-royal mage, everyone realized one thing: if they continued to oppose Dreist, the kingdom would be in danger. The royal family recognized Dreist's revenge as justified and protected their authority by granting him a title. Thus, Dreist became a man who received a noble title based solely on his magical strength. And now, can I be taught by someone like that? Then there is no reason to refuse this invitation. Scene shifts to the next day at the Ebelstein Noble District, the Cleon Hall Central Meeting Room. Inside the meeting room, the white-haired Duke spoke, Grand Duke Duplain, you intend to expand to the north of the Belkos Peninsula. Nowadays, one must be careful with the labyrinths in the White Zone. If necessary, we can mobilize our knights to support you. This person was Grand Duke Veltus Andelof Kellogg-Veltus. Grand Duke Duplain replied, the knights you speak of, could it be those low-level mercenaries? Seeing his army mocked made Duke Veltus quite angry. His voice changed, it is indeed difficult to manage such a vast territory with only private soldiers. Giving up territory is also an option. Faced with this threat, Duke Duplain immediately erupted with mana in response. Seeing the tension rise, Duke Belmiard chimed in to soothe the mood. It seems the meeting is almost finished. Since you have gone to the trouble of coming all the way to Ebelstein, why don't you go meet your children? Hearing this, Duke Duplain replied, now that you mention it, I heard your daughter Elant fought on equal terms with Aisline. He smiled and replied, ah, yes. Although she lost regretfully, it seems Elant has shown her blooming talent. With just a bit more training from a good teacher, she will definitely surpass Miss Aisline. At this, Duke Duplain wavered slightly, right, a teacher. You mean Derek? He put his glasses back on and erupted with mana to threaten back, if he becomes Aisline's trainer, Elant will never be able to surpass Aisline. Seeing his daughter mocked made Duke Belmiard extremely angry. He also erupted with mana, then smiled back, ha, I wonder if that will happen, given that her relationship with him is quite deep. Duke Duplain interrupted, do you think he is the type of person to act based on personal feelings? You have no grasp of his character at all. Watching them talk about one person made Duke Veltus wonder, who on earth is this number one that these two are so desperate to have him? I should have Denise investigate him. The scene shifts back to the familiar tavern. The door opened, and Belden's voice rang out, welcome. Seeing these people dressed in such luxurious noble attire made him slightly confused. Belmiard's voice rang out, are you the mercenary guild leader of this unit? Then a beer was placed on the table, and they began the main conversation. Since I did not receive a response to the letter my head butler sent, I had to come here personally. Belden's voice was now slightly confused, I am terribly sorry, but the problem is, a few days ago, he said he was going to turn down all missions and then vanished. This left Duke Belmiard puzzled, vanished? He thought to himself, could Duplain have snatched him up? Or Veltus? No, there is no such information. I will have to go find him myself. Scene shifts to the outskirts of Ebelstein, Grand Duke Veltus's mansion. Inside the room, Denise was calmly enjoying an apple while reading her father's letter. She turned to ask the servant, when did this letter arrive? The servant replied, my lady, it was sent early this morning. They said the master sent it as a matter of great urgency. Inside the letter, it read, find the man named Derek quickly and hire him as a tutor. She thought to herself, I guess father is in a hurry. Because the value of that mercenary is currently at its lowest. Then she sighed wearily, this is so troublesome. Today is an incredibly important day. Today is the day I've been waiting for a long time. The new book by the great author Ray Lee, The Lady Submits to the Cold Grand Duke's Ice Greatsword, is finally being released. What exactly is an ice greatsword? I'm dying to know. She sighed again, what can I do? If I don't listen now, father will just nag even more later. She turned and called the servant, Bella. Yes, my lady. Prepare my clothes, I'm going out. I have someone I need to find. Inside a cave located in a desolate canyon, Derek and Dreist were sitting in silence, practicing their cultivation. The sound of trickling water and the chirping of cicadas added to the peaceful atmosphere. Dreist slowly guided him, close your eyes and slowly release your mana like a thin mist. Then, feel that mana touch everything around you and bounce back. Beads of sweat rolling down his cheeks clearly showed his concentration. The thin stream of mana began to spread out, touching surrounding objects like a radar system. He began to explain, what you are doing is the fundamental basis of scouting magic. At the 2-star level, you can pinpoint targets and detect magical power. At the 3-star level, you will see through all disguises. And once you reach 4 stars, you can completely peer into the hearts and minds of your opponents. At the 5-star level, you have the ability to read thoughts and converse with the dead. Finally, when you reach 6 stars, you will gain the power to foresee the future. Derek softly asked, see the future? That's right. I foresaw the future, which is why I came here to find you, because I am in dire need of your help. What on earth is going to happen? He thought for a moment before replying, do you know a man named Valerian? He is the eldest son of the Duplain family. Before you officially come of age, he will embark on the path of dark soul summoning arts. Because of that, you are forced to step in and end him. Derek was slightly confused. Why would he get involved in such dark arts? What exactly is he plotting? I am sorry, but I cannot reveal any more details to you. The future operates according to its own laws. If you blindly knew everything, the days ahead would become even more chaotic, unpredictable, and prone to changing in extremely troublesome directions. If there is one more thing I can disclose to you, it is that you are fated to die. Hearing this, he remained extremely calm as if nothing had happened. It seems you aren't that surprised. You just said my fate is to die, but you didn't say I would definitely die. His answer made Dreist smile. He slowly stood up and continued, exactly right. And I don't want to see you lose your life at all. You are not allowed to die, so I will help you keep your life.
To survive, you must become strong on your own.
Finishing his sentence, he immediately cast some kind of magic straight toward the sky. His hand pointed toward the clouds obscuring the moonlight. His voice suddenly became strangely serious, with an overwhelmingly powerful tone. Instantly, above the sky, a massive magic circle spread out, clearing away the drifting clouds. The shimmering light from it was enough to mesmerize anyone who saw it. The cave was illuminated by the moonlight, making it look like a well leading straight to heaven. Derek's gaze followed intently, as if he had understood what the old man meant. Scene changed to the next morning. The streets were bustling and busy. A carriage slowly rolled down the street. When it stopped, Lady Denise and her maid stepped down from the carriage. All eyes around were fixed on her with admiration. Denise said softly to the carriage driver, "I will walk from here, you stay here and rest." "Yes, my lady." As she walked down the street, Denise asked her maid, "Bella, why is everyone staring at me?" The maid bowed her head slightly and replied, "I am wondering the same thing." Denise smiled, "Could it be because I am too beautiful?" Hearing this, the maid beside her was rendered speechless. She ranted nonstop, "You're a mess, the room is messy, and people are too lazy to bathe, just lying around all day reading books. Your normal appearance is already boring enough, but I think you look even worse right now." Denise didn't get angry but turned to tease her, "Oh my, Bella. You've been quite the comedian lately." "I'm not joking at all. Shouldn't we hurry up, my lady? What if another family sends someone to whisk that guy named Derek away?" "Don't worry, Bella. No matter how slow I am, I'm still faster than those people. But when it's time for class, I see you're always late. Is it true that the mercenary rejected all invitations and went into hiding? Are you even listening to a word I say?" Her eyes narrowed as she thought to herself, "He's not the type to turn down money, so why suddenly? Or has something appeared that is even more valuable than money?" For someone who can use such high-level magic at a young age, if there is something more important than wealth, it can only be magic. Either he accidentally obtained a supreme secret manual, or he managed to apprentice under some brilliant grandmaster. If that were the case, he wouldn't have the mind to work as a mercenary. So it's obvious why he declined the requests. But that very mercenary voluntarily left the Duplain mansion, right? Is there any place more ideal for practicing magic than the Duplain estate? That means he has found a spot even better than the Duplain residence. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. Could it be? Suddenly, the maid's voice startled her. "Lady Denise, we have arrived." Before them was the familiar Beldun mercenary troupe. When the door opened, Beldun quickly smiled and greeted the guest. But then, his gaze suddenly stalled. "Oh my, that is truly surprising. To think even a noble lady would go out of her way to come here. We don't know Derek's whereabouts either. Just this morning, 3 groups already came looking for him. I really don't have any other information to provide you." Denise didn't care and just asked one question. "The old mage Dreist Wolftail has visited here, hasn't he?" Beldun answered awkwardly. Having received what she wanted, she smiled contentedly. "Thank you very much for your answer." Finishing, she turned to leave. "Let's go, Bella. I need to cross-reference the carriage schedule logs." "Yes, my lady." A while later, at the Ebelstein Business District Carriage Association, the two were searching through the week's schedule. "My lady, how did you know Master Dreist had been there?" Isn't it obvious? That mercenary voluntarily left the mansion of a 5-star mage. A magic fanatic like him would give up a 5-star training ground? That proves a 6-star character must have appeared to be enough to attract him. I also just received news that a 6-star mage is on their way to the Ebelstein region. I was just making a wild guess. Who knew the old man would hit the mark so spectacularly like that? Could it be because I am just too intelligent? Her maid stared at her and replied, "You never use your brain normally, so I have no idea." "Oh my, Bella, you've been so sharp-tongued today." She replied, "I'm just being objective." Denise continued her narcissism. "Oh, I'm exhausted. It's because I'm so talented. I just want to be a good-for-nothing." "Bella, does my lady like hearing me talk back to you like this?" What? Don't you always just see my cute side? You really never listen to a single word I say. Even if we find him first, are we sure we can recruit him? I heard both the big shots Duplain and Bellmeyer are hunting for him desperately." "Oh my dear Bella, that is the easiest part. I've already mapped out a perfect battle plan." "What's the plan?" Lady Denise tilted her head back, her smile widening even further. "It's using the honey trap. He's a young man in his prime, after all.
How could he possibly refuse a stunning beauty like me? But your competition is Lady Eislein, isn't it? Denise, stunned, asked back, why are you pouring cold water on me?
Bella, I am clearly prettier than her.
Right? I'm prettier, right? Answer me. You only pay attention when it's about stuff like this. Ah, found it. Both of them quickly read the information. This happened a week ago? A teenage boy in a cloak carrying a travel permit. The destination is the Ramhell Hills outskirts of the Laspa lands.
Back at the cave, the two were still focused on training their magic intently. Suddenly, Dreas sensed something and spoke softly. It seems someone just arrived here.
They seem to be from the Veltus family. They look like your guests. Go out and welcome them.
Outside the cave, the maid beside Denise said anxiously,
Please, Lady Denise, I don't think we should go any deeper. How about we go back, report to the family head, and return with more soldiers later? I can't do that. If I do, this credit won't count for me anymore. Not to mention, if we mobilize troops and another family gets wind of it, what then?
That would be no different from turning ourselves into a stepping stone for someone else to snatch the prize.
Suddenly, the maid screamed, Oh my lady! There's a monster over there.
From the deep darkness, a pair of fiery red eyes appeared.
Denise hurriedly shouted at her maid to step back. Bella, quickly hide behind me. Didn't they say this place was cleared out? I'm not really cut out for combat magic, but in this situation, I have to take a gamble.
She reached her hand forward and began chanting in an ancient language, as a flow of magical power began to form.
But then, as Derek's figure gradually emerged, Denise was stunned and stopped. He spoke slowly. What wind blew a noble lady like you to such a desolate place? Lady Denise.
She slowly lowered her hand.
Is that the mercenary? All three stood looking at each other in silence.
The maid beside her also let out a sigh of relief.
But then, Denise smiled softly and calculated, now is the time to make him mine. From the dark cave, Derek slowly appeared before the two. Denise breathed a sigh of relief and asked, Derek, isn't it? He answered calmly, yes, that's me.
A gentle smile quickly appeared on her lips, her hands raising her dress delicately.
Thank goodness, I came here because I really wanted to see you. Derek, I just want to have a conversation with you, even if it's just once.
The maid beside her just sighed.
Derek stared silently for a moment then answered, that is certainly a very interesting conversation.
His answer left Denise silent, and the maid nearly burst out laughing. Discomfort was visible on her face, but Denise didn't give up and continued to advance. Well, actually, I can't count the number of times I've met you in my dreams. I've heard you are a very talented mage, and also an incredibly brilliant teacher.
So, how should I say it? If I could be taught by you, Derek, I think I would be truly happy. Suddenly, Derek's voice became more serious. Why are you using such a theatrical tone? Are you practicing acting? Because of the echo in this cave?
His answer made the maid cover her mouth to stifle her shaking laughter. She tried not to make a sound, but in the end, she was helpless.
Denise's eyes narrowed, thinking to herself, turns out the cute, delicate girl trick doesn't work on him?
When Derek turned to leave, she blocked him.
Actually, I've been thinking a lot after watching the duel between Lady Eislein and Lady Yelenti. As one of the Rosy trio, I feel like I'm the only one falling behind.
I've been very worried that sooner or later, I'll be left behind.
What if everyone else progresses, but I stay stuck in place?
She ran up and grabbed Derek's hand, her voice full of despair. Please save me. A slight smile appeared on her lips as she thought her plan had succeeded perfectly.
Oh my, so close. He must be able to feel her breath by now, right? His heart must be pounding, right? How can he refuse now?
But then, Derek's hand swung up, shoving her away unceremoniously.
Denise's face froze for a moment in shock. Ha! Derek rubbed his wrist and replied, I don't think so. From what I see, Lady Denise here has no interest in magic whatsoever. Earlier, you mistook me for a monster and cast ice magic, right? You're still very clumsy, extremely clumsy.
From the flow of magical power to the speed of casting, nothing was prepared properly at all. Your innate magical power is very good, but it isn't channeled at all.
This proves that you rarely practice magic on a daily basis.
The maid behind could only raise her hand in agreement with that perfect assessment.
Let me give you some advice.
In front of someone who is always serious about magic, don't use lies to talk about sincerity.
Some people will consider that an insult.
I hope you understand what I mean. I don't know why you need me, but it's certainly not for magic.
I don't accept requests to help people whose true motives I don't know. Denise reached out to pull him back. Derek, wait a minute. Go find someone more capable than a backwoods mercenary like me. That would be more fitting for a lady's noble status.
Having said that, he turned his back and walked away, leaving behind a silent atmosphere. Denise watched his retreating figure, her mind filled with confusing thoughts. A while later, the two quietly left the cave.
Denise pondered and reached a conclusion. I've found out his true identity. He's definitely impotent. No, that's not it. He's just a righteous gentleman.
But look at the reality. A great beauty like me used high-end cosmetics and expensive perfume, yet he still refused.
He's impotent. What kind of logic is that?
My lady, please calm down and think of a way to send a letter to your family head.
Calm down? You're funny, Bella. What do I have to be calm about? Do I look that angry? Because of such a trivial matter? Not at all, I'm not angry.
It's clear the lady is losing her mind.
Oh yes, that's right, I'm sorry.
She sighed softly and calmed down.
It's just that my fighting spirit has started to kick in.
So, Denise set up a tent right outside the cave, determined to get Derek to return with her.
Lady Denise, will this really be okay?
If I back down now, other families will snatch him away immediately.
I must recruit him as soon as possible.
The maid bowed slightly and replied, Don't push yourself too hard.
I'm going to work now.
Bella, wait. I know you've had to endure a lot because I'm always selfish, but this is a small and extremely important task.
I really hope you will help me this time.
Tomorrow when you come here, remember to bring volume 4 of The Duke's Fire Pillar Melts the Commoner Lady's Heart. The maid's face scrunched up in annoyance. Clearly, she hadn't changed at all.
The next morning, when Derek was sitting inside the cave training, an unexpected sound caught his attention. Denise was carrying a box filled with many items.
She placed a crate full of food and medicinal herbs in front of Derek, confusing him. What are these for?
Oh, nothing major.
I can't do much for you, but I will take care of you so you can focus entirely on practicing your magic.
Even if you do this, nothing will change. Denise smiled and continued her act. It's okay, just watching you is enough to make me feel like I'm improving. Don't worry about me.
Her eyes flashed with cunning as she thought to herself, anyone is bound to soften their heart when faced with someone who sacrifices this much.
Just keep on liking me, keep on being grateful, and in the end, I will be the winner. Although he sensed something suspicious, Derek still accepted the gift.
Then, I shall accept this kindness.
Hooked, he's fallen for it, but I still won't be your master. He's eating the food I brought right in front of me, and he still rejected me? What kind of person is this?
The very next day, Denise arrived with another gift in hand.
Derek, I brought you some food and magic stones today. Thank you, but I still won't be your master. The following day, Denise even invited her head chef to cook. Good morning.
My head chef said he'd prepare a feast for you.
Thank you, Derek. But I don't agree.
The day after that, Denise lugged a giant chunk of magic stone on her back.
Derek, come here and take a look. See, this is refined ore. I think it will be helpful for you. Just leave it there, but I won't accept. She returned to her tent and kicked the pole in anger, snapping it in two.
That selfish, exploitative person. I've been this kind, and he should have at least softened up a little.
But I don't see anything.
From afar, her maid came running with a pile of belongings on her back.
Lady Denise, there's a big problem. Are you implying there's something worse than this? The head butler of the Duplain family is heading this way. She hurriedly scrambled to run away.
Bella, let's hide first.
What about the tent, my lady? Oh, I don't know. They'll think it's Derek's tent. Just hide.
From the other side of the forest, the head butler, followed by the lead maid and soldiers, marched forward with extreme solemnity.
Denise hid behind a rock and thought, what in the world? Are they going to war or something?
He walked straight into the cave and delivered a letter written by the Duke himself.
Derek read it intently and softly replied, to be the magic mentor for Lady Iselin, that is truly a great honor. Denise, hiding behind and listening, was shocked and fell backward. She screamed in utter frustration and anger. After Derek finished reading the Duke's letter, the butler slowly spoke, So, can you prepare to leave with us right now?
Just when it seemed like a definitive yes, he gently refused. This decision left Denise feeling a bit confused.
Derek explained his answer, only when I have finished my training. Although I don't even know when that will be myself. The butler made a new proposal. What if I increase the compensation?
I'm sorry, with my current abilities, I can't be of any help to Lady Aislinn.
I don't want to teach magic in a half-hearted way.
Hearing that, Denise's eyes dimmed slightly.
Perhaps she finally understood how serious Derek was about magic.
The scene shifted back to the Duke of Duplain's mansion.
Aislinn turned to look at her maid, overjoyed. Oh, really? You found Derek's location? The maid stepped forward and replied softly, Yes, Lady Aislinn. The head butler personally went to meet him last night. Oh, you should have told me right away. I intended to ask him myself. After speaking, Aislinn quickly prepared to set off. We must go immediately. Gather the fastest soldiers. But Lady Aislinn, the path is very rugged.
A radiant smile appeared on her lips as her answer slipped out. This is to welcome my mentor.
As a student, I must go there personally.
Back outside the cave, Denise and her maid were sitting by a campfire that flickered in the darkness. She tightened her cloak. The lingering cold made Denise's nose run, and she caught a cold. She whispered to her maid, Let's head back tomorrow morning, Bella.
Yes, I understand. Bella looked into the distance and spoke. You gave up quite fast, given that you are smart. Denise stared at her, her eyes seeming to sigh. Hey Bella, do you always think I'm a fool? Oh, why would the lady think that? No, that's impossible. What is she saying?
Denise's eyes narrowed as she continued. Before, whenever I was stubborn, I would get things done no matter what, but this time I didn't even feel like being persistent.
Why is that? Maybe I'm just too tired. Bella looked up at the stars and replied, That mercenary mage isn't the type to be swayed by status or money.
He acts based on values that are much more important. Denise listened to it all, trying to understand what those words meant. She recalled Derek's answer from earlier, With my current abilities, I can't be of any help to Lady Aislinn.
I don't want to teach magic in a half-hearted way.
And then the images of Elenti and Aislinn at the magic exchange gathered in her mind. It clung to her, refusing to leave, as if trying to change something.
Denise curled up and muttered, Why? Why is everyone so sincere?
Inside the cave, Stone suddenly floated into midair. Derek sat there, focusing on his magic practice intently, with no signs of distraction on his face. Then a sound rang out, catching his attention, and the stones fell to the ground because the magic was interrupted. From afar, Denise slowly approached and said, Sorry, I disturbed your training.
She asked calmly, Can I sit next to you? Derek was slightly surprised by her attitude.
She looked different today.
Is it because I'm talking casually? No, it's your eyes. Denise looked up, a smile appearing in an indescribable way. Sorry for bothering you all this time. From now on, I'll stop. Derek also politely replied, Thank you for everything.
I hope you find a good teacher.
Denise plopped down onto the ground, as if laughing at herself. Mentor? What mentor? I hate magic. Derek's eyes glanced over, waiting for something. She continued to confess sincerely, It's all politics and theatrics. I only tried to pull you to my side because you were famous, but you're too arrogant. Anyway, you're going to follow Aislinn, so I might as well retreat. Derek didn't care and asked further, Why do you hate magic? That? Actually, I used to like it a little bit back in the day. No, that's not really it. I just liked being praised.
Magic was just a tool. What I wanted was the applause of those around me. I threw myself into learning when people called me a genius. I don't even know how many magic books I read. Then one day, I suddenly asked myself, What am I doing this for?
Why study so much magic? Why become an archmage? What the hell am I even doing? So I quit it all. That's all there is to it.
Derek closed his eyes and offered a response. Compliments get boring after a while.
Denise turned to look at him and smiled. Are you really listening to my story? I thought I was just monologue ing before I left. Safe travels.
She puffed out her cheeks in a pout, but she knew for sure he didn't care about that. And then, Denise slowly stood up. I'm really jealous.
Jealous of someone who never doubts their efforts like you. You'll become a great archmage, won't you? Well, if we meet again, remember to say hello.
After saying those words, she quietly left the cave and returned home.
The next morning, Aislinn and her soldiers arrived at the cave entrance.
From high above, Denise watched the group approaching. Her eyes held a touch of lingering regret, deeply hard to explain, but she eventually shook it off and returned to her mansion. A while later, the scene shifted to the Grand Duke Veltus's mansion.
Bella was brushing Denise's hair and reporting the news. Aislinn was rejected? Yes, he is a very unpredictable person. Her eyes narrowed as she thought, because his training isn't finished yet? But that doesn't really mean rejection, does it? Now you should stop worrying about this.
Right, he probably plans to live in that cave forever and turn into a bear, like that legend from the East.
That legend is about a bear turning into a human.
Whatever, Denise sulked, thinking, he thinks he's the only one in this world who knows how to use magic, huh? When the two reached the living room door, Bella whispered, "Oh, a guest just arrived to dine with you."
A guest? Who is it?
The door to the room slowly opened.
Denise bowed her head as usual. "Father, good morning."
But when her eyes opened, a familiar guest was sitting there. Derek was having a pleasant meal with Duke Veltus. He gently turned to look at her with a calm expression.
In that moment, Denise froze.
She had no idea what the hell was happening.
This is